Chapter 1724. Faced with Yi Tianyun's thick skin, the evil emperor didn't stop attacking. Instead, he immediately unleashed an even stronger attack on Yi Tianyun. Boom! Boom! Yi Tianyun kept blocking the evil emperor's attacks, but the evil emperor's attacks didn't seem to have any effect on him. Under the continuous attacks, Yi Tianyun could clearly feel that he was injured. Although the injury wasn't serious, his defense had been severely damaged. He didn't expect that his defense, which had been enhanced by so many times, would still be broken. Of course, this injury could only be considered a superficial wound. Combined with his heaven-defying healing power, he basically recovered instantly. There wasn't a single scar left. However, it was a fact that his defense had been broken. The evil emperor's attack power was still very strong. If he used it together with the evil deity army and the power of awakening, he could really cause severe damage to him. However, it seemed that his attacks didn't have any effect on him at all. He could barely hurt him. Evil Emperor, is this all you've got? Weren't you quite arrogant before? Didn't you want to kill me? What about now? Yi Tianyun sneered. However, he was still very sure of the evil emperor's strength. If he hadn't been exhausted by him previously, he would have been quite difficult to deal with. Damn it, how did this kid become so tough? The evil emperor's heart sank. He had already used all his skills and the towering sky godly screen to strengthen him. However, he still couldn't cause any damage to Yi Tianyun. He had finally managed to injure Yi Tianyun. However, with his heaven-defying healing power, he recovered in the blink of an eye. This was unbelievable. He had never thought that a heavenly venerable would have such a drastic change after breaking through to the heavenly god level. Compared to before, the difference was too terrifying. He was very shocked that even an upper heavenly god couldn't cause any damage to him. If there were a few more of them, how could he fight? Not only did he have a heaven-defying defense, but his companions were also constantly healing. He was basically a walking spiritual medicine. Furthermore, it was a very sturdy spirit herb, one that could not be destroyed. This attack is too weak. I can't feel any pain at all. Can it be stronger? Yi Tianyun swung his arm and gestured for Evil Emperor to continue attacking him. The Evil Emperor's expression was unsightly. He was mocking him in front of so many of his subordinates. If he couldn't kill Yi Tianyun, he would lose all his face. Very good. I didn't expect you to have such a change after becoming a heavenly god. I have underestimated you, but this is the end of it. Evil Emperor took out another awakening crystal. He did not expect that he could awaken again. Under normal circumstances, Evil Emperor could only awaken once. If he wanted to awaken again, he had to completely recover. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to make up for the deficit in his body. This was similar to the ignition of one's bloodline. If one were to overdo it, one's bloodline power would be depleted. When that happened, not only would it affect one's cultivation base, but it would also greatly affect one's cultivation progress. Evil Emperor had used his full strength to execute this attack a second time, and there was no doubt that he had been forced into a corner by Yi Tianyun, and he had no choice but to use his full strength. Awaken! After Evil Emperor swallowed another awakening crystal, the evil deity army quickly rushed over, no longer entangled with the other region lords. When they came to Evil Emperor's side, they quickly integrated with him, and their power began to increase rapidly. Evil Emperor can still awaken? Can he still persist? The Fekta, region lord, and the others' faces darkened. They had all seen the power of Evil Emperor's awakening. If he awakened again, even if Yi Tianyun's defense was heaven-defying, he would still be injured. Yi Tianyun squinted his eyes. He also did not expect Evil Emperor to choose to awaken again. Evil Emperor could use such a self-damaging move again. It seemed that Evil Emperor's physique was really tough. After a while, Evil Emperor successfully awakened again, and his terrifying power appeared in front of everyone again. However, compared to before, it was still a level lower. After all, the second time was definitely not as terrifying as the first time. Even so, the overall power was still infinitely close to that of an emperor god. It had reached a heaven-defying level. The surrounding void quickly twisted, and together with the power of the heavenly godly screen, it was not much weaker than the first time. Die! As soon as the integration was completed, Evil Emperor charged towards Etianyan. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of everyone again with extreme speed. In the next second, he was already in front of Etianyan, and then he reached out his hand to pierce through Etianyan's chest, as he had done before. This time, Etianyan was also well prepared. He blocked with his arms and collided with the palm. Boom! The terrifying compressed energy exploded on Etianyan's arms, and he was sent flying. A large part of his arms caved in, and there was black gas constantly invading his arms. Despite his terrifying defense, his arms were nearly crippled by this move. What powerful combat prowess! Etianyan was shocked. He did not expect his heaven-defying defense to almost be crippled. As expected, after the awakening, Evil Emperor's power had reached a level that could suppress him. However, compared to the previous situation where Evil Emperor could kill him with one move, it was still much better. In such a state, with his heaven-defying healing power, he could recover quickly. In a short while, his arms had recovered. You are strong, but you're still far from it. Etianyan shook his hand. It looks so casual, as if it doesn't hurt or itch. He doesn't feel anything at all. Evil Emperor's eyes darkened. He had awakened, but he still could not kill Etianyan. Alliance leader, you are amazing. The Sword Edge Region Master and the others were shocked. Facing Evil Emperor's awakened power, Evil Emperor had only scratched the surface. It should be said that the injury was not light, but facing the powerful healing power, it was only scratching the surface. Your skin is really hard, but I don't believe you can last forever. Evil Emperor's hand flashed, and a bone spear appeared in his palm. The bone spear in his hand had many sharp thorns. No one knew what kind of bone could be used to make such a weapon. As soon as this weapon appeared, the Fector Region Master and the others' faces changed. Obviously, they recognized what this weapon was. When Etianyan saw this bone spear, his eyes turned cold. This was not an ordinary weapon, but an upper celestial god's spiritual treasure, and it was definitely a top-grade one. The originally heaven-defying Evil Emperor, coupled with this terrifying bone spear, could probably cut him in half with one slash. Especially the bone spear, which was constantly absorbing energy from the surroundings. If he was hit, the sharp bone spear would immediately suck him dry. Chapter 1725. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade was the main weapon of the previous generation's Celestial Emperors. I didn't expect the Heretical Emperor to get his hands on it. The Fecta Domain Lord and the others recognized it. That was what the record said. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade was actually the evil spirit's exclusive weapon. Ever since it had been sealed in defeat, it had been missing. They hadn't expected it to be in the Heretical Emperor's hands. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade had devoured the essence and blood of countless cultivators. Now, it looked even more terrifying and sinister. One touch and you'd be sucked dry. It hadn't even touched any life, but it was already absorbing all sorts of energy in the air. It was easy to imagine how terrifying it would be if you were stabbed. Etianyan's heart sank when he saw the heaven-devouring bone blade. He didn't think that he could withstand the heaven-devouring bone blade's attack with just his body alone. What he needed to do now was buy time. He probably couldn't kill the Heretical Emperor. Given his current condition, he couldn't do that. Even 256 times his strength wouldn't work. Although he hadn't used it, he knew he couldn't kill the Heretical Emperor, especially now that he had taken out the heaven-devouring bone blade. This was the first time he had taken out a weapon. Previously, he had dealt with them empty-handed. This meant that the Heretical Emperor still had a lot of power he hadn't used. If he did, he'd probably reach an even more terrifying level. The Heretical Emperor didn't want to use his full strength. This was the arrogance of a superior. It would be too embarrassing to use it all. How could he not lose face if he had to use his full strength to deal with a small fry? But that was precisely why Etianyan felt so relaxed. Those who disdained to use their full strength to fight would usually be those who underestimated his existence and would be instantly killed. The Heretical Emperor was an exception. The power he possessed had reached a heaven-defying level, and he couldn't deal with him. It'll be your honor to die by the sky, devour Boneblade. Become one of us. The heretical emperor swept up a beam of black light and tore through space, slashing toward Etienne. He no longer wanted to control Etienne. He just wanted to destroy Etienne. Black light flashed, and it was like the world was being devoured by this darkness. Everything disappeared, including the surrounding energy, space, and light. Everything was being devoured by the heaven-devouring Boneblade. As long as it was touched by the heaven-devouring Boneblade, it would all be sucked inside. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of Etienne. The entire void was frozen in place, completely devoured by the heaven-devouring Boneblade. Before the attack even reached him, Etienne felt his body being sucked dry bit by bit. The energy on the surface of his body was being absorbed by the heaven-devouring Boneblade. The surface was even beginning to turn into energy and dissipate bit by bit. If one were to observe it carefully, they would see that it was being absorbed at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was no pain at all. It was quickly turned into energy and devoured by the heaven-devouring Boneblade. Invincible! In an instant, Etienne did not hesitate at all. He immediately used his strongest move. As long as it was a heavenly god-level attack, he would be invincible for 5 minutes. The evil emperor was infinitely close to becoming a god-emperor, but he was still a heavenly god and not a god-emperor. The moment he released it, there was a ding sound. A layer of faint green shield appeared on the surface of his body. After the shield was formed, there was no problem with his body, and he was no longer being absorbed. At the same time, Etienne took the attack head-on. It was not that he did not want to dodge, but the evil emperor was too fast. It was really an instant, so fast that they could not see it clearly. Boom! The heavy sword slashed over, and Etienne was sent flying. He was invincible, but invincible did not mean that he would not be sent flying. It just meant that he would not be injured. The terrifying impact came pressing over, and after Etienne was sent flying for a distance, he quickly stopped. There was not a single wound on the surface of his body. Forget about being cut in half. Not even a single hair on his body was hurt. This was the power of invincibility. He was absolutely invincible below the heavenly god level. What? After the evil emperor slashed down, he thought that he would definitely be able to take Etienne's life. Even if he could not kill Etienne, he would at least be able to cut him in half and absorb some of his energy. But now, he found that there was no effect at all. Etienne was still standing there unharmed, as if nothing had happened. Evil Emperor, why is the power of your sword even weaker than before? Is this so-called heaven-devouring Boneblade a fake? Etienne sneered and began to ridicule the evil emperor. The evil emperor's face sank. This was beyond his expectations. There was no effect at all. This was too inconceivable. He dared to say that even if an upper heavenly god was in front of him, he would be instantly killed. Even if he did not die, he would at least be half crippled. He had tried before, easily cutting upper heavenly gods at the waist. Some of them did not die, but most of their energy was absorbed by the heaven-devouring Boneblade, and their bodies were half crippled. But now it was useless against Etienne. This was beyond his expectations. The Fecta Domain Lord and the others drew a sharp intake of breath. None of them could believe what they were seeing. That's your alliance leader? The one who saved us. Heavenly Goddess Yuji, who was dealing with the heaven-engulfing divine screen, was paying close attention to what was happening. She was truly given a fright upon seeing this. The evil emperor, who defied the natural order, wasn't able to gain any advantage from Etienne. On the contrary, he was being forced back repeatedly. Haha, that's our alliance leader. He really did save you. The Fecta Domain Lord roared with laughter. He was extremely elated by Etienne's performance. No wonder Etienne was so confident. Just this power alone was invincible. Looks like we have a chance to escape. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others were extremely excited. Even though it appeared that they had the upper hand, this was only temporary. They didn't know how long Etienne's current state could last. If he couldn't hold on for much longer, then they would all be screwed. Impossible. The evil emperor didn't stop there. Instead, he charged toward Eteonyon again, unleashing one sword strike after another to force Eteonyon back. Eteonyon was knocked flying over and over again, but he was completely unscathed. The evil emperor was starting to doubt his own life. His powerful attacks were completely ineffective against Enlin. He knew that some techniques could be used to defend against one or two attacks, but he had never seen anyone who could defend against such a powerful attack for so long. What kind of technique is this? The evil emperor stopped, and there was a hint of panic in his eyes as he looked at Eteonyon. This was the first time he was panicking. If Eteonyon continued like this, then how were they supposed to win? He looked around to see that the morale of the evil spirit tribe members had already plummeted to an extremely low point. After all, the evil emperor was an invincible being in their hearts. Chapter 17:26. The terrifying continuous attacks made Eteonyon feel some pressure. Fortunately, he had the invincibility effect. To be precise, it was an absolute defense that could defend against any move. As time passed, the 5 minutes were up. Once the 5 minutes were up, he wouldn't be able to use the invincibility technique. As for the 2-hour cooldown, it seemed very short, and he could recover with a little cooling godstone. In fact, it couldn't be used. Cooling godstones and such had no effect on this invincibility technique. Either they didn't allow it to be used, or the grade of the cooling godstone was too low to recover the cooldown time. This was the same as before. Many things couldn't be used, or the effect was pitifully low. Unless it was upgraded, the effects would be negligible and wouldn't have much of an effect. Looks like I have to fight it out with him. I'll fight it out with him first. Eteonyon didn't become a punching bag. He kept attacking Evil Emperor. Immediately, he exploded with a crazy damage mode. 256 times the power instantly stacked in his body. Boom! It was filled with an extreme explosive power, and it exploded in his body. He felt his body was full of terrifying power. The void around him was shaking. This was somewhat similar to Evil Emperor. However, it was still much weaker than Evil Emperor. It seemed that 256 times the damage at the lower celestial god level was terrifying. In fact, compared to the peak of upper celestial god, 256 times was still a distance away, and not a short distance. After the explosion, he held the 5-dragon divine spear and charged toward Evil Emperor. This time, he wasn't passively taking a beating. He took the initiative to attack. 5-dragon roar. Eteonyon didn't hesitate to explode with his strongest power. The 3 Empyrean spiritual treasures released their strongest power. Under the support of such terrifying power, the 3 Empyrean spiritual treasures buzzed as if they couldn't withstand such a terrifying, explosive power. The power he had now naturally exceeded most celestial gods. Therefore, it was very normal for Empyrean spiritual treasures to reach their limits. Roar! The terrifying 5 dragons rushed out and instantly enveloped the area. Although it couldn't compare to the heavenly towering god screen, it was comparable to the attacks of the evil spirits. How could this be? The evil emperor's eyes narrowed. He had never thought that there would be such great power. He quickly pulled with his hand, and the heaven-devouring bone blade immediately swept up the pitch-black energy, but was still too slow. He had underestimated Eteonyon's power, and he didn't even have the chance to charge up his power. He could only release his defensive power in a short period of time. Due to the suddenness of the release, the power seemed very weak. When the pitch-black energy swept past the 5 dragons, the energy of the 5 dragons began to be devoured and melted. But soon, the 5 dragons' power pounced on him and crushed Evil Emperor's attack. Boom! Evil Emperor was sent flying, and he nearly lost his grip on Heaven Devourer. Half of his body was gone, and black blood flowed out nonstop. As the pitch-black blood dripped into the void, it quickly condensed into an army of evil gods. It wasn't that the evil emperor's blood was the evil god army, but that the evil god army had turned into blood and fused into the evil emperor's body. Now that it was blown away, it naturally returned to its original form. After returning to their original form, the army of evil gods looked weaker. It was obvious that they had been blown away by Yi Tianyun's attack. Their situation was very bad, and they looked very weak. Even an ordinary divine realm expert could kill them. Under this explosion, many of the army of evil gods were blown away, and Evil Emperor's power was greatly reduced. He didn't expect that Yi Tianyun's attack could cause such great damage to Evil Emperor. This situation shocked the Fecta Domain ruler and the others. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They thought that Yi Tianyun's defense was invincible, but they didn't expect his attack to be even more terrifying. Alliance Leader's attack is so powerful. This is unbelievable. I really didn't expect this. I thought that his defense was powerful, but who knew that his attack was also so powerful? As expected, Heavenly Venerables are extremely powerful, and Divine Realm experts are even more so. They can fight against Evil Emperor directly. Cloud-piercing Domain ruler and the others shouted as they attacked fiercely, and the evil spirits next to them couldn't breathe. After all, most of the army of evil gods had been pulled over, and they were constantly being healed, so their combat strength was extremely high. When they saw Yi Tianyun's ferocity, they fought with more vigor than usual, and for a while, the group of evil gods couldn't breathe under the pressure. Evil Emperor's injuries were recovering rapidly, and the area that had lost a section of his body started to be repaired. However, before Evil Emperor could recover, Yi Tianyun continued to attack fiercely. He wanted to take advantage of his weakness to kill him. Yi Tianyun wouldn't slow down. He immediately waved the 5-dragon divine spear and attacked fiercely again. As he swung the spear, he attacked fiercely again and again towards Evil Emperor. "Just an ant, don't be so arrogant." Evil Emperor roared angrily, and the bone spikes on the sky devouring bone blade in his hand started to extend, and the bone blade enlarged rapidly. Soon, a huge skull appeared on the bone blade, and it wasn't just one skull but several skulls. Every skull seems to be unlocking a level of energy, and as more and more skulls are unlocked, the energy level is rising steadily. In the next moment, Evil Emperor fiercely slashed, and the 5-dragon crazed roar that pounced over was actually quickly devoured. The two started to cancel each other out, and after a moment, the 5-dragon crazed roar was completely devoured, and then it opened its huge skull mouth to devour Yi Tianyun. However, the remaining power has already become very weak. Yi Tianyun quickly waved his spear, and the skull exploded. As expected of the Evil Emperor, his power can still be stronger. Yi Tianyun didn't expect this. He still hasn't used all of the Evil Emperor's trump card power, and now, a little bit of it is enough to drown his attack. This is just as he expected. The Evil Emperor only used half of his power. If he used his full power just now, then he really wouldn't be the Evil Emperor. He didn't stop attacking and continued to fight with the Evil Emperor. He is unable to kill him now, but it is not a problem to exhaust the Evil Emperor. Boom! Accompanied by a series of explosions, Yi Tianyun was slightly blown away, and the surface of his body was devoured, and his body began to transform into energy and dissipate. However, soon after, he recovered, but he is no longer in an invincible state. The invincible state can only last for 5 minutes. It is impossible to maintain it forever. "Oh, weren't you very tough just now? And didn't you say that my attacks are useless? Why are you injured now?" When the Evil Emperor saw Yi Tianyun injured, he sneered. He really thought that Yi Tianyun has an invincible defense, but now it seems that he can still be injured. Chapter 17:27. Evil Emperor was immediately angered by Yi Tianyun's words. He is still so stubborn at this time. "Don't be stubborn. It seems that your previous move can only last for a short time. At least it proves that you are not really invulnerable, and I can still kill you." Evil Emperor laughed, and when the rest of the evil spirit race saw the situation here, they all cheered up. When they saw that Evil Emperor can't hurt Yi Tianyun, they all felt a little desperate. Even Evil Emperor can't hurt Yi Tianyun, let alone them. Now that Evil Emperor injured Yi Tianyun, it proves that Yi Tianyun is not really invincible. Is that so? Let's try it then. Tianyun's injured area was completely healed in no time. His super healing ability allows him to recover at an extremely fast speed. Even if it's just a small injury, it's really nothing to be afraid of. There is damage, but under such a terrifying healing ability, it's basically equivalent to being ignored. Immediately, Tianyun fought with Evil Emperor again. Evil Emperor has a time limit and energy limit. Although Tianyun also has a time limit, as long as his companions help him kill the enemy, it's not a problem. A steady flow of crazy points is equivalent to constantly replenishing his energy. Everything is quite perfect. But correspondingly, after Tianyun lost his invincibility state, every time he attacks, he will be injured. Of course, Evil Emperor is also not much better under the repeated attacks. Evil Emperor also suffered a little damage. Maybe not as much as Tianyun, but at least he is injured. This kid can still last so long. After Evil Emperor fought with Tianyun many times, Tianyun was injured again and again, but he quickly recovered without any pressure. He has seen a lot of cultivators who can quickly recover from injuries, but after a few times, or many times, they will become weak. After all, the recovery speed of the body is fast, but it consumes too much energy, so after several injuries, it is possible that the recovery speed will slow down or become a little worse. Tianyun was obviously not one of them. He looked completely fine and was still as strong as ever. As long as Tianyun survived, the Vile Emperor would be the loser. The Fecta Domain Lord continued to destroy the heaven-engulfing divine screen. Everything was progressing smoothly. More than half of it has been destroyed. Just a small portion is left. Fortunately, I've studied the Heaven Gold divine screen before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it so quickly. The Fecta Domain Lord's eyes were sharp. He had studied a long time ago and simulated it many times. Everything was in preparation for the next God-Emperor battle. Back then, the heavenly towering divine screen had caused them to suffer severe losses. Hence, it was very likely that it would appear again. The Fecta Domain Lord would definitely put in more effort into his research. Fortunately, he had some achievements, and he was able to put them to good use. The Sky Creator race also learned very quickly. They immediately grasped the method of dispelling it. Otherwise, they would not have been able to dispel it so quickly. It was impossible for the Fecta Domain Lord to achieve such speed alone. Just a little bit more. Alliance Lord, hang in there. They transmitted their voices to Tianyun and the other domain lords at the same time. Finally, after a period of time, a large hole was torn in the heaven-engulfing divine screen. Perhaps it had not been completely torn open, but at least a large hole had been torn open. Go! The Fecta Domain Lord gestured for them to flee. Immediately, a large group of experts fled out of the heaven-engulfing divine screen. How can this be? The Vile Emperor was shocked when he noticed the situation. In his opinion, even if the heaven-engulfing divine screen had been destroyed, it should not have been destroyed in such a short period of time. Now, in less than a day, the heaven-engulfing divine screen had been destroyed. The speed was simply too fast. There was only one possibility. They had mastered the method of dispelling it, and it was a very complete one at that. Tianyun had also noticed the situation. His eyes lit up. It seemed like he could finally escape. He had been fighting the Vile Emperor all this time. It had been really tiring. The Vile Emperor was quite resilient. No matter how he attacked, he could endure and even counterattack. Actually, this was all within expectations. It was just that the Vile Emperor had lasted too long. How long could he last after his second awakening? Especially after such a long battle, the power was still so fierce. The only thing that had managed to injure the Vile Emperor was the first attack. The subsequent attacks could not do any damage to the Vile Emperor at all. Now that the Vile Emperor was prepared, there was no way he would let Tianyun succeed with another sneak attack. The heaven-devouring bone blade in his hand was becoming more and more powerful. It was also constantly draining Tianyun's life force to replenish his own. Perhaps that was why he had been able to fight for so long. Now that his defenses had finally been breached, he could finally escape. Go! Tianyun did not delay. He immediately turned and fled toward the exit. His speed rising to the limit. He had no intention of continuing to fight. Don't even think of escaping. The Vile Emperor was furious. The fact that Yun could last so long had already exceeded his expectations. Now that he could even break the heaven gold godly screen, he was even more shocked. If the Vile Emperor managed to escape, then his reputation would be completely gone. Unfortunately, the Vile Emperor's shout was meaningless. Yun would only run faster and faster. However, the Vile Emperor's speed was no joke. He quickly caught up to Yun in the blink of an eye. Scram! Yun fiercely swung the 5 dragons' crazed roar. The 5 dragons quickly swept over and pushed the Vile Emperor back. The damage was not weak. Even if it couldn't deal much damage to the Vile Emperor, it would still be difficult for him to block it. At the same time, Yun transmitted to them, "Gather together quickly and enter the Fecta Domain Master's internal dimension. Hurry!" Yes. They immediately entered the Fecta Domain Master's internal dimension without any hesitation. Through this battle, Yun's words had the effect of absolute command. Everyone was convinced of his strength. Nothing was more convincing than powerful strength. In the blink of an eye, they all entered the Fecta Domain Master's body, including the Sky Creators. The Sky Creators' lives were all saved by Yun. They would definitely listen to him. Swish! Yun's figure flickered. He instantly put some distance between himself and the Fecta Domain Master. He had already escaped from the Heaven Gold godly screen. He let the Fecta Domain Master enter his internal dimension. Then he prepared the teleportation divine stone in his hand and activated it immediately. Chapter 1728. He disappeared. The Vile Emperor's sword didn't cut Yun in half. It only tore a hole in the space in front of him. There was nothing inside. There wasn't even a hair on Yun's body, to say nothing of him. The Vile Emperor's face darkened. Just like before, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one knew where he had gone. Or rather, he had used some sort of special treasure to allow Yun to escape without anyone noticing, and with such speed. Is he messing with me? If he had a treasure like that, why couldn't he use it right from the start? Could it be that he can't use it while he's sealed? The Vile Emperor thought back to what had happened. Yun hadn't been able to escape while he was sealed. Once he escaped or the seal disappeared, he would instantly disappear. His expression didn't improve after learning this. This meant that if he wanted to capture Yun, he would have to use all sorts of seals. Once he escaped, he would be able to escape with ease, and he wouldn't even know how. He didn't even know what sort of treasure could allow him to escape so easily from right under his nose. Generally speaking, if you couldn't stop someone, you would have to escape through the void. Empyrean God Tower Cloud had done that. The Vile Emperor had paid a heavy price to save Empyrean God Tower Cloud. Empyrean God Tower Cloud was an experienced Empyrean god. After all, he had to be saved no matter what. He hadn't sensed Yun's escape at all. He had vanished into thin air, just like that. Apart from feeling angry, this also made him feel troubled. Who the hell is this kid? How can he know so many strange moves? Even Fecta Divine Realm wouldn't be able to do this. The evil emperor clenched his fists tightly. He had lost all face when the Heaven Creator clan was rescued once again, especially when he couldn't defeat the other party. It was a great humiliation. Lord Vile Emperor, the invaders have escaped. Should we give chase? The evil god army flew over and asked. No, everyone go back and rest. The Vile Emperor snorted, then turned and left. The rest of the evil spirit army looked at each other. Were they going to let them go just like that? Lord Vile Emperor, are we going to let them go just like that? Not only did they invade us, but they also managed to escape. If word gets out, the evil spirit race's reputation. Boom! The evil emperor waved his hand, and the evil spirit deity who had just spoken was instantly reduced to ashes, scaring the other evil spirits into retreating. My orders are not to be refuted, but to be obeyed. The evil emperor glanced at them coldly and continued to fly inside. They could only look at each other, suppress the fear in their hearts, and obediently follow. Since Evil Emperor had already said that, what else could they do? Even though the Evil Emperor had failed this time, he was still the Evil Emperor, the most powerful being here. After the Evil Emperor returned, he sat on the throne with a gloomy expression. Not long after, an evil spirit race walked out from behind him with a trembling body. After taking a closer look, he realized that the evil spirit race was covered in wounds. Logically speaking, with his cultivation base, his wounds should be able to heal quickly. However, it was impossible for him to do so. It looked like an attack mark that had always been on his body and could not be removed. Why did you stop me? They have already killed their way here, trampled on my territory for so long, and still managed to escape. Why can't I chase after them? The Evil Emperor looked at the evil spirit race with a sharp gaze. Lord Evil Emperor, have you forgotten about the situation with Lord Evil Spirits? It seems like we have the upper hand, but that is not necessarily the case. Many powerful cultivators have buried themselves in the various divine territories. Once you start a massacre, it will cause a battle between the divine emperors. That is, when they come out, they might be sealed. The evil spirit race said with a trembling voice. Therefore, Lord Evil Emperor, you have to endure everything. I know you still have many abilities that you have not used. Once everything is set up, it will be time for them to end. As for those divine territory masters, they will all become your slaves. Moreover, this area is just a small distribution to distract them, so it is not a big deal even if it is destroyed. The evil emperor's gaze was cold. After remaining silent for a long time, he nodded. I have indeed gone mad with anger. At this critical juncture, I have to remain calm. The Heaven Creator race has been captured, and we have indeed lost some support. Fortunately, everything has been set up. What should be done will not change. The evil emperor sneered, and Yi Tianyun's figure appeared in the depth of his eyes, but the corner of his mouth curled up into a disdainful smile. Not bad. If it wasn't for this place suppressing this emperor's power, then this emperor's power is really not enough. The evil emperor immediately went to make some preparations. Everything was gradually set up. Yi Tianyun quickly brought them to the Three Realms' divine territory and then released them. When they came out, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. They thought that Yi Tianyun would use some method to escape with them. They did not know whether they could escape successfully, but they still chose to believe in Yi Tianyun. However, they did not expect that Yi Tianyun would directly escape with them to the Three Realms' divine territory. Escaping to the Three Realms' divine territory was one thing, but how long had it been? It was probably less than a short while, and they were already back in the Three Realms' divine territory. What kind of speed was that? Was his ability to tear through space that monstrous? Many heavenly gods could tear through space, then forge a special teleportation space. They could then step over it in a single step. It was similar to a special kind of greater teleportation. This kind of teleportation could teleport very far in one go, but the further it was, the longer it would take. Did the evil emperor ask Yi Tianyun to slowly tear through space and then teleport over? That was impossible. Everything was too strange. What's going on? We're all back. The Cloud Piercer Region Master and the others were all stunned by Yi Tianyun's move. I used a treasure to teleport back. I paid a huge price. Every time I use it, I can only use it once. Yi Tianyun found an excuse. Such a mystical treasure. Their eyes lit up. The world was vast, and there were all sorts of strange things. It was very normal for such a special treasure to exist. Yes, it's almost impossible to obtain. Moreover, it can only be teleported back here alone. It could be considered a treasure gifted by the heavens. The only problem is that when it's sealed, it can't be used. Yi Tianyun made up another excuse. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain himself. As the Alliance Master, he had to explain himself. Although it was fine if he didn't say anything, it would still make them feel uncomfortable. After all, if such a good treasure could be created, it should be shared. That would greatly reduce the number of casualties. Chapter 1729. They didn't think that Yi Tianyun's explanation was a lie. After all, They believed him because of the protective shield of the god realm of the three realms. That's great. It's a divine tool for escaping. We came back in the blink of an eye. It's amazing. How many times can this thing be used? The affected domain lord smacked his lips. He really wanted to have it. I think it can only be used a few times. At most 10 times? Etianyan gave a random time. How many times can it really be used is already enough. With this little ability to escape, you're really the most suitable person to be the alliance leader. If anything goes wrong, we can escape together. Not only is it good for escaping, but the key is that the alliance master's strength is incredible. He can heal us and fight the evil emperor. This kind of strength is more than enough to be the alliance master. He's already so powerful after breaking through from heavenly master to heavenly god. If he breaks through one more time, won't he be able to crush the evil emperor? Alliance master, how did you do it? It's the first time in my life that I've seen someone who can fight beyond their cultivation level. It's incredible that he can fight an upper heavenly god. The domain lords kept praising Etianyan. They felt that he was too powerful, especially after breaking through. It was like he was a different person. If not for the fact that his face hadn't changed, they would have thought that another powerhouse had become the alliance master. Etianyan smiled and didn't explain much. It was fine as long as everything went according to their ideas. They could think whatever they wanted. Alliance Master of the Heavenly Cloud Alliance, we don't want to say much. You saved our lives and the rest of our clansmen. We really can't repay you in this life. If it's possible, we want to join you. Right now, we are weak and our numbers are relatively small, but we do not ask for anything. We only hope that we can assist you and destroy the evil spirit race together. Heavenly Goddess Yu, Ji's status was not low. She stood up to talk to Etianyan. Her cultivation was not high, but she was able to represent them. It was very likely that she had a royal bloodline in her bloodline. Etianyan's eyes lit up. He hadn't even mentioned anything, but these heaven creators had actually chosen to join him. This was truly a joyous occasion. If that was the case, he would be able to reach the standard soon. Previously, they needed so many Empyrean venerables. Now that so many Empyrean gods and Empyrean venerables had joined them, it could almost be said that they had almost reached the target, and they had even exceeded it. Of course, it didn't mean that he could join right away. He glanced over and saw that only a small portion of them met the standard. This meant that they still had to continue for a while before they could meet the standard. According to the previous standards, one must have loyalty. If one didn't even have loyalty, how could one talk about joining? Therefore, he had to raise his strength to a certain level before he could be considered to have truly joined. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be considered to have joined. However, according to the current situation, he just had to slowly raise it. Looking around, their loyalty had already reached 60 points. Raising it to 80 or 90 points wouldn't be a problem. They had just joined, so it was impossible for them to simply hand their lives over to Etianyan. Even if Etianyan had saved them, he wouldn't do something like this. They could use other things as payment, but if they handed over their lives so casually, they would be being irresponsible to themselves. They had to deal with the heretical emperor, so they didn't dare to give up all of their lives before they understood Etianyan. It's my honor to be able to join my force. Etianyan looked at them with a stern expression. I know that a large part of the reason why you're joining my force is because we've been fighting against the heretical emperor. You're only joining because you plan to fight against the heretical emperor with us. I won't say anything else. In any case, our goal is the same. I welcome all of you to join us to destroy the evil spirit race and restore peace to this world. Etianyan naturally didn't think that Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others had chosen to join him because of his charisma. That was all nonsense. They had simply seen that he was quite powerful, and with this alliance, they would be able to deal with the heretical emperor if they joined. Otherwise, they wouldn't join even if they saved him 10 times, let alone once. After all, deep down in their hearts, they wanted to destroy the evil spirit race, and they wouldn't rest until the evil spirit race was destroyed. It was impossible for them to join a force with no future or with no strength or goals. At most, they would say that they would help and receive various rewards, but it was impossible for them to join. Now that Etionyan had explained it so clearly, Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others didn't feel awkward at all. They only needed to think about it for a moment to understand what was going on. Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader, it's great that you understand. Even though we have a goal in mind, we will all listen to your orders and strengthen the forces of the God realm of the three realms. Elder Mihao told me just now that the God realm of the three realms actually has a very deep connection with us, and that is the Divine Spirit race. Back then, the Divine Spirit race was our leader, and they led us to fight against the evil spirit race. Even the seal on the evil spirits was sealed with our help. Now that we can join forces again, it's undoubtedly the best way to do that. Heavenly Goddess Yuji smiled. She had immediately learned about the situation after arriving here, and she was able to quickly glean the general situation. It was exactly because of this that she immediately chose to join them. They were once teammates, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to join forces again. Actually, you don't have to listen to my orders. I have a lot of freedom here, so feel free to bring up any ideas you have. My orders aren't the only ones. Good suggestions are the most important, and I don't have to dictate everything, Tianyun said with a smile. He had always allowed his subordinates to control things, and he had to learn to delegate power. Not only was it very tiring to control everything by himself, but it also made it easy to lose people's trust. Another point was that all good ideas would be stifled. Of course, this was mainly because he knew how to use people. Otherwise, delegating power to others would be courting death. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others looked at each other, and they were quite satisfied with Etinyun's explanation. They also had many ideas, and if they didn't get approval from the Heavenly Cloud Alliance, they would obviously be extremely unhappy. The Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader's management style is indeed different. The other region lords all hold power firmly in their hands and are unwilling to delegate power at all. If the Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader can say this, then it's perfect for us. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others smiled knowingly, and they all felt that Etinyun's explanation was very reasonable. After that, they didn't talk much, and Etinyun invited the other region lords to the three realms as guests. After going through a great battle, they felt both excited and refreshed. Chapter 1730. Etinyun's side was victorious and did not suffer any losses. At most, they were injured, but there were no fatalities. This was an unprecedented achievement. In the past, there had always been casualties. This time, if not for Etinyun's powerful healing abilities, a few domain lords would have died before they could escape. After all, the chances of dying were too high under the siege of so many evil spirit race beings. Especially under the suppression of the evil emperor, the pressure was multiplied. Fortunately, no one died in the end. They even saved all the heaven-creating race beings and killed many evil spirit race beings, allowing them to vent their anger. This made them follow Etinyun's lead even more. In the future, if Etinyun had any plans, they would definitely go with him. After all, it was too safe when they fought. With Etinyun healing them, they could fight to their heart's content. Therefore, if Etinyun had any plans to eliminate the evil spirit race, they would immediately go and kill the enemies without hesitation. It's all thanks to the Alliance leader this time. This toast is to the Alliance leader as an apology. I didn't really trust the Alliance leader before, but now I'm convinced. In the future, I'll do whatever the Alliance leader asks me to do. Me too. This toast is to the Alliance leader. The battles in the future will be smoother. Let me also toast to the Alliance leader. Alliance leader will lead us to eliminate the evil spirit race so that they can't stay here. All of them toasted to Etinyun. They were all convinced by Etinyun and trusted him very much. Their current goal was very simple. They wanted to eliminate the evil spirit race. This was the foundation of the Alliance. After toasting one by one, the Fecta Domain Lord shook his head and said, "There's no need to be so happy. If we didn't have the method to break through and cooperate with our comrades from the heaven-creating race, it would really be difficult to break through. We would probably be exhausted to death. We can't always rely on the Alliance leader. There are times when the Alliance leader doesn't have enough power. If we're trapped again, we might suffer losses. The Fecta domain lord poured cold water on them. He wasn't as happy as the other domain lords. He was very calm. When he returned, he had already concluded many things, especially in this situation. Yes, it was a complete victory, but it was also a narrow victory. Fortunately, we were able to break the heaven gold divine curtain. Otherwise, we really would have been trapped inside, and the Alliance leader would have been exhausted to death. I believe that the Alliance Master has been healing us for a long time, so you must have used up a lot of energy. You have also been fighting against Evil Emperor, so you must have used up a lot of energy. Sword Edge Region Master took a sip of wine. His eyes were calm, and there was no joy in them at all. When the two of them said that, their expressions immediately darkened. There was indeed nothing to be happy about. A victory was a victory, but it could only be considered a narrow victory. It was fine this time, but what about next time? Perhaps the two region masters want to talk about the aspect of strength. Etionyan also took a sip of his wine and looked at them with narrowed eyes. That's right. Our strength is still too weak. If we only rely on one person, we'll really be finished. Next time, there was a need to gather a large number of experts and head there together. However, they could not send too many, lest their forces be depleted and be taken advantage of when the time came. Sometimes, not only do we have to be wary of the evil spirit race, but we also have to be wary of our own side. The Sword Edge Region Master narrowed his eyes. He was talking about other forces. They might not be the evil spirit race, but they could also launch a sneak attack. In this era, there were many selfish people, and some of them might even be controlled by the evil spirit race. When the time came, they would not know what would happen. That was also why only the region masters were sent out, and the others did not go out. The next time they went out, they would at most send a few elders. If there were more, they really did not dare to go out. In the end, we still need more forces to join us. Etionyan looked at them with a serious expression. If we can persuade the Medicine God Temple. The Fecta Region Master shook his head and drank the wine in his glass. He did not finish his sentence, but they all knew what he was going to say. The Medicine God Temple will join us. Etionyan thought for a while, then looked at the Fecta Region Master and said, "Where is the Medicine God Temple? Let me go meet them and see why they have not chosen to join us." That's what I was thinking. The Fecta Region Master smiled. Since he had said that, he must have similar thoughts. After this battle, they realized that they had many shortcomings, such as the lack of replenishment. If the Medicine God Temple joined them, their replenishment would definitely be greatly improved. But the premise was that the Medicine God Temple really joined them. The other region masters looked at each other and saw a hint of anticipation in each other's eyes. If the Medicine God Temple really joined them, their overall strength would definitely be greatly improved. But could they really persuade them? After all, the Medicine God Temple had refused to join them since the very beginning of the Divine Emperor battle. Would they still choose to join them now? This was clearly not in line with their style, especially since they had once had a Divine Emperor. I remember the Medicine God Temple. A long time ago, I asked them to join us in resisting the attack of the evil spirit race, but they chose to refuse. Heavenly Goddess Yu, Ji shook her head, but there was no anger in her eyes. If they refused, it was their own business. She could only say that everyone had their own choice. They all shook their heads. Although they were looking forward to it, it was too difficult to persuade them. So many years ago, they had failed to persuade them. Would they succeed this time? For a moment, the atmosphere was a little negative. They felt that Etionyan's proposal might be good, but the success rate was a little low. Don't be too negative. It doesn't matter even if you refuse. I just want to see why the stubborn Medicine God Temple is so stubborn. Etionyan's eyes flashed. It's a good thing if you can join us. If you can't, just think of it as me going to exchange for some spirit medicine and get ready for the war. Yes, the Alliance Master is right. I'm just going to take a look. But if you want to contact the Medicine God Temple, you need someone to introduce you. I can help you. The Fecta Domain Master had some connections in this area. If he wanted to enter the Medicine God Temple, he naturally needed a referral. Etionyan raised his hand and looked at them with a smile. No, I'm not going to communicate with them directly. I'm going to sneak in and take a good look at the situation inside. Etienne's shocking words really shocked them. They looked at each other. Their alliance master really didn't play by the rules. He chose to sneak in. If he was caught, it would be troublesome. If the alliance master was caught, wouldn't they be without a leader? Especially if he was caught, the medicine god temple would definitely not let him go. Not to mention killing him, they would definitely lock him up for tens of thousands of years. Chapter 1731. They were all shocked by Etienne's bold idea. No one expected that Etienne would choose to sneak into the medicine god temple instead of going in through the gate. Such an alternative method was likely to lead to a fatal disaster. As for foreign invaders, they would definitely kill them. No matter who they were, they would definitely be killed if they dared to invade their sect at will. The better ones would be captured and locked up in all sorts of ways. If they really wanted to rescue them, they would have to pay a very high price to be able to redeem Etienne. Not only that, but they also provoked the medicine god temple. They would have to pay a very high price to trade with the medicine god temple in the future. For the same elixir, Etienne would have to pay several times the price. Otherwise, he would not be able to trade with the medicine god temple. The price was still relatively high. The main thing was that he would be killed, which would be terrible. But when they thought about it, Etienne's power was so strong that he could even fight against the evil emperor. There were many strong people in the medicine god temple, but there were very few who were stronger than the evil emperor. Unless he encountered an extremely terrible opponent, Etienne might really be able to escape. Alliance Master, isn't this a little too bold? The Domain Master's face twitched. Those who had such an idea were all dead. He didn't want his Alliance Master to become one of them. Why do you say that? Etienne looked at him with a smile. The Medicine God Temple is extremely strict. It's almost airtight. It's too difficult to get in. The key is that if you really go in and get caught. The Domain Master said awkwardly, I'm afraid the Medicine God Temple's Temple Master is at the same level as the evil Emperor. It will be troublesome if you get caught. The reason why the Medicine God Temple was not disturbed was that its cultivation was much stronger than the evil Emperor's. Even the Evil Spirit clan did not dare to provoke them at will. It was obviously not worth it to be killed. You don't have to worry about that. You just need to tell me the location, and I'll take care of everything myself. Etienne raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. He wasn't worried that the area lords would tell others. All of them were now extremely loyal to Etienne. After that battle, their loyalty towards Etienne was extremely high. If their loyalty was low, then there was a problem. Fortunately, none of them had encountered such a situation. The main thing was that they had all passed the screening and were recommended by Cloudpiercer and the others. How could there be any problems? As expected, the Alliance Master doesn't play by the rules. It was the same before. The Fecta Domain Master smiled and said, Okay, I'll show you the way. To tell you the truth, I've studied the Medicine God Temple. As for how to sneak in, we still need to do some research. In that case, let's sneak in together and steal all their spirit herbs. All of you think highly of yourselves. Do you really think that you're invincible and that no one can do anything to you? The other area lords looked at the Fecta Domain Master speechlessly. They didn't expect the Fecta Domain Master to have such an idea. There's no need for that. I'll do it myself. Etienne hurriedly stopped the Fecta Domain Master from accompanying him. If he could sneak in, he was confident that he could come out. As his cultivation increased, his escape skills must have improved greatly. If the Fecta Domain Master joined the fray, it would be hard to say. To put it bluntly, he would be a burden, especially since he had mastered so many secret techniques. It would be hard to explain if they saw him. The Fecta Domain Master gave him a meaningful look as if he understood him. Then he took out an astrolabe and marked the location of the Medicine God Temple. He explained, This is the area. Let me tell you, you're our Alliance Master. As our leader, you can't make any mistakes. You have your own ideas, and we won't reject them blindly. But you have to know your responsibilities. Although the Alliance Master's capture wouldn't cause chaos, it would cause many problems. Especially since Etienne played an important role, he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. If he made a mistake, the evil spirit race would be in trouble. Besides, he was still causing trouble at the evil spirit race's side. Who knew when the evil spirit race would pounce on them? By then, they would need all kinds of support. They couldn't do it without Tianyun. I understand. I won't do anything rash. I'm only doing this because I'm confident. I just want to find out why the Medicine God Temple is doing this. Is there something they can't say, or is there something behind the scenes? That was Tianyun's idea. He wouldn't be able to see anything from the main entrance, so he could only go in and exchange for the spirit medicine. If he sneaked in, it would be different. He would definitely be able to see more things. The affected domain master smiled and said nothing more. Fine. Since that's your idea, we won't say anything more. The other domain masters didn't say anything, nor did they try to dissuade him. After a life-and-death battle, they trusted Tianyun very much. They knew that Tianyun wouldn't act rashly. They thought that Tianyun was acting rashly, but after the incident, they realized that Tianyun wasn't acting rashly. Although it was only once, they trusted Tianyun from the bottom of their hearts. Thank you, everyone. Tianyun reached out and cupped his hands to express his gratitude. After chatting for a while, they all returned to their own forces. They still had a lot of things to do, such as guarding against the evil spirit race's attack. At the same time, they had to build a teleportation formation in their own forces, which meant that all the major forces would be connected to form a whole. Otherwise, if something went wrong, it would be extremely troublesome to support them. By the time they arrived, most of them would have been destroyed, so the teleportation formation was especially important. After they all left, Tianyun gave some instructions and began to go to the Medicine God Temple. Medicine God Temple? What is it like? Tianyun was looking forward to the Medicine God Temple. At the same time, he really wanted to take down the Medicine God Temple. Once the Medicine God Temple was taken down, the inner divine realm would basically be under his control. Ding successfully completed the special quest, Save the Heaven Creator Clan. Reward: 5,000 compressed crazy point, 50 Heaven Creator Clans favorability, and 50 other domain masters favorability. This quest is finally completed. When he rescued a large number of Heaven Creator Clan, there was no quest completed. At that time, he was wondering why it didn't appear. Now it seems that the quest completed is to save all the Heaven Creator Clan members. So that's how it is. Tianyun shook his head. He is now waiting for the Heaven Creator Clan to gradually integrate into the inner divine realm. After they fully integrate into the inner divine realm, the main quest can be completed. Another thing is to sneak into the Medicine God Temple. Ding successfully accepted the special quest win over the Medicine God Temple. Reward: 10,000 compressed crazy point. Complete the Inner Divine Realm Unification quest and obtain the title, I am the Alliance Master. Chapter 1732. Roping in the Medicine God Temple and unifying the Divine Realm. Just as I thought. Tianyun shook his head. The Medicine God Temple had more than a dozen divine realms under its command. Although it wasn't a subsidiary on the surface, it was recognized internally. Therefore, as long as the Medicine God Temple joined, the rest of the forces would immediately follow, which was tantamount to ruling the entire divine realm. At that time, they would have a greater chance to fight against the evil spirit race. No one knew how strong the evil spirit race was, but as long as they gathered together, the success rate would greatly increase. In the face of the invasion of the evil spirit race, they would have the strength to resist. Especially the Medicine God Temple. It was a medicine furnace that could continuously provide all kinds of elixirs, which had excellent endurance in the war. Therefore, if the Medicine God Temple could be taken over, it would really greatly improve their strength. Soon, Tianyun came to the Medicine God Temple according to the direction of the astrolabe. When he came to the vicinity of the Medicine God Temple, it was not so much the Medicine God Temple, but a high mountain surrounded by thick white fog, shrouding the area. Such a huge mountain stood in the void and was also shrouded by a large white fog. It looked so illusory, like a fairyland on earth. It seemed that he could go in at will, But Etienne knew that the price of going in at will was to get lost inside and possibly die inside. If he could go in at will, the elixirs in the Medicine God Temple would have been pulled out long ago. This maze is really profound. If I rush in recklessly, I will really be trapped inside. Etienne took a quick look and knew what was going on inside. As long as he stepped in at will, every few steps he would immediately be trapped inside, and then he would be discovered by the surrounding guards in an instant. At that time, they would come to arrest him. As for whether there were other killing formations, it was not very clear. Anyway, if he went in at will, he would definitely be trapped. Immediately, he observed for a moment and began to walk inside. When he was about to walk into the fog, his figure flickered and entered the void. The power of the void has a strong effect on any formation. He could easily break in and weaken the effect. Now, with his profound divine inscription master abilities, he could easily walk in without being discovered. After entering, he was immediately enveloped by the white fog. Because the entry point he found was very stable, he was not discovered. Especially under the influence of the void energy, the effect was almost negligible, basically undetectable. Perfect continued to sneak in. Etienne continued to go deeper. He had originally planned to upgrade his void bloodline if he was discovered and strengthen his stealth abilities. Fortunately, he didn't need to do that and could easily sneak in. After sneaking in, Etienne quickly went in. However, even if he found a gap, he would have to circle around it several times before he could barely pass through the outer array. After stepping out of the outer formation, Etienne immediately felt his heart sink as he sensed a powerful force surging in from all directions. At this moment, he didn't hesitate to spend a large amount of crazy point on Void Bloodline. Ding! Congratulations to player Etienne for successfully upgrading Void Bloodline to Apex. After deducting a large amount of crazy point, his Void Bloodline directly upgraded to the Apex. Void Bloodline is not even at 9th level, and it's already Apex. This is different from the other bloodlines before. Those bloodlines can be upgraded to 9th level, but Void Bloodline is already Apex without 9th level. It's too fast. However, after the upgrade, the effect has been greatly improved. Etienne felt that he has completely integrated into the Void and can mobilize the power of the Void around him. As he stretched out his hand, the power of the Void quickly surrounded him and turned into an invisible wall, blocking in front of him. This will perfectly transform into the Void, which is difficult for anyone to detect. This power is also difficult to detect. After brushing past him, it continued to sweep to other areas. That was close. Etienne wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. He was almost discovered. He didn't expect Medicine God Temple to still have a trick up their sleeves. After passing through this fog, the area he entered was guarded by a ray spirit. This kind of array spirit is specially planted with spirit medicine as the array core. It is also a strange living creature. Etienne looked around and immediately saw a piece of spirit medicine in front of him. As for which one is the array core, it is not clear, or there are several array cores. Because the grade is not low, they are all living creatures, and then they are planted here. When planted here, it can form a living guard. As long as an intruder comes in, it can be detected immediately. There is no blind spot in the area covered. The key is that it is difficult to detect. If it is not for his strong perception, he really can't detect it. If a normal cultivator breaks in, they will think that they have broken into a treasure land, but they don't know that this is a confusing point. When they loot the spirit medicine here, the guards have already arrived. However, the grade of the spirit medicine around is really not low. Ordinary cultivators will really come to loot, but those who can break in are definitely not ordinary cultivators. Even if they are not interested, they will be detected, and guards will come immediately. It's really dangerous everywhere. Medicine God Temple is really not simple. Etienne quickly floated to the front, avoiding the detection of the surrounding area, and flew to the front area. Soon, he avoided this area and came to the next area. After passing through this vast area of spirit medicine, he entered another area again. This time, he was very careful. Even if it is to upgrade the Void Bloodline, he did not dare to take it lightly. Immediately, What came into view is not a special area, but the real inside of Medicine God Temple. What came into view is the same as the outside. There are mountains as far as the eye can see, still surrounded by a faint fog. But this is not a maze, but a rich spiritual chi around it. In these mountains, there are all kinds of spirit medicine, and the spirit medicine planted in each area is different. No matter how many spirit medicine is planted, the rich spiritual chi quickly rises and condenses around. If you practice here, the feeling is self-evident. Your cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. As expected of the Medicine God Temple, the spiritual chi is so strong. Staying here for a while makes me feel energetic. Tianyun turned his head and looked at the spiritual chi that is about to materialize, which is really enviable. Chapter 1733. The area covered by the Sacred Medicine Temple was quite vast. At a glance, there were all kinds of spiritual herbs. It covered almost the entire area, which was quite a big deal. There were high and low grades of spirit herbs, and different grades of spirit herbs were planted in different areas. There were not many mountains in front of him. In fact, there were only 5. There was a palace built on each mountain. The largest palace stood in the central area, which was obviously the most important palace. Perhaps the temple master was inside, but he had no intention of looking for him. From a moment he sneaked in, he could not come into direct contact with them. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Hey, little medicine boy. Tianyun happened to see a little medicine boy fertilizing the spiritual herbs in the nearby medicine field and covering them with soil. He was very careful. The little medicine boy's cultivation was not high. He was only at the Lord of Heaven level. In this area, he was the only one managing it, taking care of the medicinal field in this area bit by bit, not daring to be careless in the slightest. Immediately, his figure flashed and appeared in front of the little medicine boy. He stretched out his hand and pulled him into the void. Before the little medicine boy could react, he looked into Tianyun's eyes. Charm. Tianyun immediately used the charming eyes to control the little medicine boy. His charming eyes had not been upgraded much, but it was not a problem to control the Lord of Heaven level. After the charm, the little medicine boy was controlled. He stood there in a daze, waiting for Tianyun's order. Tianyun did not waste time and immediately began to ask about the situation here. The little medicine boy truthfully told him all the details. Because of his limited status, it was impossible for him to know everything, but he was still relatively clear about the general situation. For example, he knew the distribution of the surrounding area and the approximate number of experts. Of course, there were still many details that he was not clear about, but it was enough. At least he knew the distribution of the area. So that's how it is. Then I'll borrow your clothes. Tianyun directly stripped the little medicine boy and put on his clothes. Then he ordered the little medicine boy to bury himself and hide his aura. After putting on the little medicine boy's clothes, Tianyun really looked like a little medicine boy. Because his aura was restrained, his cultivation really looked no different from that of the Lord of Heaven. After a little circle, he was very satisfied. Not bad. With his clothes, I can go to most areas. This little medicine boy had been assigned to manage the small medicine garden. Basically, this area was managed by the little medicine boy. He would not go to the major temples unless he wanted to pick ripe spiritual herbs. It was not that he could not go at ordinary times, but this little medicine boy happened to be a kind of taciturn kind. This is exactly in line with Tianyun's requirement. He immediately changed into a little medicine boy's clothes so that he can blend in. After all, there were many disciples in the Medicine God Temple. Even if someone else was in charge of this area, they really wouldn't know. Under these conditions, Tianyun could really sneak in above board and was not afraid of being seen through. Under these conditions, Tianyun can really sneak in without being afraid of being seen through by others. The key was that the arrogant disciples of the Medicine God's Temple did not think that layers of protection could be broken without being discovered. In their view, no one could sneak in. That was impossible. Not even the evil emperor. The evil emperor could not sneak in, but Tianyun could. After asking all the questions, Tianyun picked up the spiritual herbs and flew to one of the main temples. Along the way, he did not see any trace of his fellow disciples. After flying a long distance, he finally saw another little medicine boy in another medicine garden. Along the way, he did not see any trace of his fellow disciples. After flying a long distance, he finally saw another little medicine boy in another medicine garden. The little medicine boy just glanced at Tianyun and did not bother to pay attention to him. In his view, they were all on the same side, and he did not bother to look at them. This saved Tianyun a lot of trouble. He did not have to charm another person and then bury himself in a pit. As he flew, he could see more and more disciples appearing in this area. At a glance, there were high and low cultivation levels. It was not as terrible as the legends said. There were still some disciples with lower cultivation levels. This was normal. It was impossible that there was no reproduction, right? The child that was born would still be sent to this side. The appearance of Tianyun did not attract their attention. He successfully sneaked in and walked to one of the main temples with a small bamboo basket on his back. Along the way, there was really no difficulty. Some people looked at him a few times but did not ask. There were many disciples in the medicine temple, and it was impossible to recognize all of them. The area here was relatively vast, and not all disciples knew each other. When he arrived at the spiritual medicine hall, more and more people began to gather. It was full of little medicine boys, carrying small bamboo baskets with spiritual herbs, which looked particularly spectacular. There were several deacons in front of him, constantly collecting spiritual herbs and recording them one by one. Good, next. The deacon gestured for the next one to come up. Soon it was Tianyun's turn. He took out a bamboo basket and handed it to the deacon. Deacon, these are the spiritual herbs of the jade bamboo garden. Please have a look. The deacon glanced at him and was a little suspicious. The little medicine boy of the jade bamboo garden? Strange, why did he change so much? I've been practicing too hard recently, so it's a little out of shape. Tianyun hurriedly found an excuse. He did not expect that the deacon had seen him before. Thinking about it carefully, even if the deacon only came once in a while, he would probably have some impression of him. I see. Then remember not to rush. Practice slowly. Even if there is an alchemy competition soon, you can't be in such a hurry. The deacon looked at him with concern. He did not expect that he would really believe such a lousy excuse. Huh, there's an alchemy competition? Tianyun was taken aback. This little medicine boy really did not know anything. He really did not like to go out. You don't know? Well, according to the records, the last time you came to offer spiritual herbs was almost 100 years ago. Although it was a little long, the spiritual herbs you offered were all the best. The deacon couldn't help but praise him. Although it is good to focus on cultivating spiritual herbs, you should not be too closed off. If you can, you should participate in the alchemy competition. If you get a good ranking, you can directly enter the medicine temple. Tianyun had no interest in this. He just pretended to come in and explore the situation inside. However, with his current status, he could only act in this temple. He had to participate in the alchemy competition before he could go to another temple. Chapter 1734. Tianyun didn't answer the deacon directly. The deacon wasn't the registration office, so it was useless to tell him. After offering the elixirs, he could exchange them for contribution points, which was similar to what he had planned. Or rather, the rules were similar to most forces. They kept earning contribution points to exchange for the things they needed. Although there were so many apprentices managing the elixirs, they couldn't use them randomly. They could only receive a certain amount of elixirs at certain times. As for these contribution points, they could exchange for various elixirs, cauldrons, and martial arts. Although this place was relatively isolated, it was necessary to motivate them. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for their development if they just sat there and ate. Even if they had a lot of resources, they couldn't give them out casually. It would only raise a bunch of lazy people, and they wouldn't be able to achieve anything in the future. Should I participate or not? Tianyun thought for a while and decided not to rush. He had to explore this temple first. Everything else would be put aside. Then, he pretended to go to other temples to exchange for things. His figure flashed around the corner, and he entered the void. With the void bloodline at the max level, even if the space here was extremely stable, he could still enter it. It was a pity that his bloodline was already at the top level. If he could continue to upgrade it, it would be perfect. With the current void bloodline, there were still some limitations. It was just that it was already at the top level and couldn't be upgraded anymore. After entering the void, he swaggered to other areas of the temple, specifically going to some forbidden areas. However, the so-called restricted areas here were not very interesting. They were all areas where medicinal pills were stored and some grimoires were stored. If they were precious elixirs and the like, he would be more interested. However, they were all ordinary elixirs and treasures. With his cultivation, there was no effect at all. It was targeted at those with lower cultivation, those who were below the Lord of Heaven. Those who were above the heavenly venerable realm had no effect at all. Even Sir Gods had little effect. It was obvious that these 5 temples corresponded to different cultivation levels. There were different treasures inside. This temple was naturally of a lower level. He couldn't find anything useful. There's nothing. Looks like I can only go to other temples. Tianyin didn't stay here. He immediately left the shrine and flew towards the other shrines. When he went to the divine halls one by one, he found that their grades were higher and there were more experts, but he still couldn't find any clues. There was nothing special about them. What secrets? Absolutely none. Fortunately, no one noticed him along the way. With his powerful cultivation and the void bloodline, he could be said to be invincible and invisible. No one could discover him. He also remembered that he had a godly skill, which was invisibility. His level was relatively low, so if he could increase it by a large margin, it would definitely be difficult to detect. However, he felt that it wasn't worth it. Invisibility was a good divine skill, but couldn't be used in many situations. For example, they had to go through the teleportation formation. Even if they were invisible, they would not be able to hide from the teleportation formation. Once they teleported, they would be discovered. In many situations, fighting was the main focus. Stealth could make it easier to launch sneak attacks, but it was still easy to be exposed. This was the reason why he hadn't leveled up all this time. However, he was starting to think about it now. If he could use it with his void bloodline to launch a sneak attack, it would be perfect. Interesting, it seems that when I have more crazy point, it would be a good choice to level up the invisibility divine skill. Tianyin remembered this idea in his heart. Now, there's only the main hall that he didn't go to, that is the real Medicine God Temple. For the outside, Medicine God Temple is the general name. For this place, the real main hall is called Medicine God Temple. If he wanted to sneak in, he might be discovered by Medicine God, but now, if he wants to figure out things, he can only go to Medicine God Temple to check. When he quietly flew to Medicine God Temple, he didn't even get close. He immediately felt a circle of light released from Medicine God Temple, circle after circle, shrouding this side. When Tianyin approached, he found that the circle of light actually penetrated into the void and rushed towards him. He was so scared that he quickly retreated back to avoid being affected by this circle of light. After quickly retreating from the periphery of the circle of light, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He could feel that if he was affected by the circle of light, he would definitely be discovered. Sure enough, I can't underestimate everything here. Medicine God Temple is extraordinary. Just in terms of security, it is much more strict than outside. Tianyin frowned. There is no doubt that he can sneak in quietly. As for going in openly, that is also impossible. Looking down, there's only one passage up. There is basically no disciple coming up, mainly because they're not qualified to come up. Naturally, no one will walk. If he were to get close, he would definitely be chased out and wouldn't be able to enter. It seems that if I want to enter the inside, I have to participate in the alchemy competition. Tianyin frowned. He wanted to quickly inquire about the news and then get a hold of Medicine God Temple's weakness. If you want to enter, you have to participate in the alchemy competition, get a good ranking, you can enter Medicine God Temple and get various rewards. After knowing that this is the only way, he turned back to the previous temple and began to sign up for the alchemy competition. Alchemy competition is basically open to everyone. As long as the level of god alchemist reaches the second or third level, they can participate in this kind of competition. The higher the level, the better. There is no limit. This is only the basic level set. Those below this level basically don't need to participate. After signing up, Etianyan waited for the time to start. During this period, he can only return to the previous area, pull out the disciple, and put him in the house to wait. This little medicine boy has no grievances with him, so naturally, he won't do anything to him. He just arranged for him to sit there obediently, cultivate, and rest. Soon, after a month, the alchemy competition finally began. Fortunately, he came in time, otherwise he really wouldn't know about the alchemy competition. This has to do with the little medicine boy himself. His level of alchemy is not bad, but he just doesn't want to participate in these things. He just wants to stay here and take care of the spirit herbs. As for fame, wealth, or status, it has nothing to do with him. He just likes to take care of these spirit herbs. Regarding this kind of thinking, Etianyan can only give him a thumbs up. If he can win him over, he will definitely recruit him. Chapter 1735. When Etianyan arrived at the temple, it was already crowded. Many disciples had gathered here, waiting to go to the competition venue. The competition venue wasn't here, but in the open area in the center of the 5 mountains, which was relatively close to the medicine god temple. It could also be seen clearly from the top of the medicine god temple. This was tantamount to competing in front of the alchemy god, causing many disciples to be incomparably excited. If the alchemy god or the other elders took a liking to them and selected them as a disciple, then they would have a meteoric rise. Etianyan observed the situation around. There were really a lot of disciples, and it seemed that there were still a lot of new disciples. At the same time, he didn't see anyone controlled by the evil spirit race. There was no problem at all, and there was no traitor at all. At the same time, he sighed for the new main force. Each of them was quite talented, and the appraisal, I could clearly see their level. Every disciple's alchemy level wasn't low, and they were also quite talented. In other forces, they would be considered above average alchemists, but they could only be considered relatively ordinary here. But it was no wonder. How could the area that focused on alchemists not have such outstanding standards? It could almost be said that they had been influenced by spiritual medicine since they were in their mother's womb, and they quickly mastered alchemy. Their starting point was a lot higher than most cultivators. Naturally, there was no comparison. Their starting point was so high, and compared to them, they felt inferior. But apart from alchemists, they had no other abilities, which meant that there were no divine makers or divine carver masters. They were very pure alchemists. Apart from alchemists, there were also alchemists. At least for now, they were all alchemists. It was unknown if the stronger ones had other abilities. When almost everyone had arrived, the deacon in front of them nodded and said to them, "Time's up. Now, head to the alchemy area. Those who came later have already lost their qualifications. Come again the next time it's held." Time waited for no man. If it didn't even abide by the time, what kind of result could they expect? Immediately, the deacon led them down the mountain and came to the central area of the area. There was nothing special here, just a large open space. At the outer perimeter of this open space, there were many spiritual herbs surrounding it. Dense spiritual energy soared into the sky, enveloping the entire area. It made them feel as if all the pores on their bodies had opened up, and it was extremely comfortable. This was undoubtedly the area with the densest spiritual power. The main reason was that there was a huge spirit gathering formation under his feet. The spirit chi released by all the elixirs in this area was gathered here and then poured into the medicine god temple. Standing right above the passage, they naturally felt the densest spiritual power filling their bodies. Of course, he couldn't casually come here during normal times. He could only stand here during the alchemy competition. This was considered a kind of benefit. Even if they didn't get any ranking, staying here for a while would allow them to absorb more spiritual energy, which would be of great help to their cultivation. Therefore, when the disciples came over, they all tried their best to absorb the spirit chi here to replenish themselves. He would absorb as much as he could, wishing he could absorb all the spiritual energy in this place. Although the density of the spiritual energy was high, it didn't have much effect on Etienne. He could gain a lot of experience points by absorbing the spiritual energy, but for his current level, it was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. Unless he ate all the spiritual herbs in one go, he might only gain a little bit of experience points. This was the consequence of having a high cultivation level. These disciples had lower cultivation levels, so the effect was naturally the best. There are quite a lot of participants, at least 1,000 disciples. They're all second or third grade god alchemists and above. What a bunch of monsters. Etienne shook his head. In his realm of the three realms, there were alchemists, but there were very few who had reached this level. At most, there would be a dozen of them. There were quite a number of low-grade alchemists, but those who had reached the level of god alchemist and above were too few. As they greedily absorbed the spiritual energy, suddenly, a ray of divine light descended from the sky, enveloping the seats in front of them. Then, a beautiful figure slowly descended from the sky and sat down on the seat. Her white robe fluttered in the wind, making her look like a goddess. Especially the surrounding spiritual energy, it danced over, forming a faint, colorful glow that was released in all directions. When the disciples saw this lady, their eyes widened, and they hurriedly lowered their heads and shouted, "Greetings, Princess Little Medicine Fairy!" Princess Little Medicine Fairy? Etienne sized up this Little Medicine Fairy. She was only one word away from the Little Medicine Boy, but her status was worlds apart. Her cultivation level was even at the heavenly god level. With a lift of her hand, all the spiritual herbs in the surroundings toppled over and even swayed continuously. This ability wasn't intentional. It was because she had the extremely rare medicine god body. As long as they reached the area where the spiritual herbs were, they would jump onto her body. If other cultivators went to look for spiritual herbs, they probably wouldn't even be able to find a single one. But when she entered the forest, all the spiritual herbs appeared and stuck themselves onto her body. Some of the spiritual herbs were still alive, and they would run away. But when they met her, they obediently followed her. It was simply terrifying. Right now, there was a longevity blood ginseng sitting on her shoulder. It was waving its small tentacles, looking extremely mischievous. This longevity blood ginseng was probably tens of thousands of years old, and its rich blood energy could probably replenish one's depleted bloodline power by eating just one tentacle. And this extremely rare 8th or 9th grade spiritual herb was sitting on her shoulder. This really made Etienne sigh how the world was so big that nothing was too strange. Forget about the luck goddess's body of fortune. Now there was even the medicine god body. This was simply heaven's blessing. Spiritual herbs that others would never be able to obtain approached one after another. The benefit of the medicine god body was that it could raise the grade of spiritual herbs. If a cultivator with the medicine god body stayed with them for a long time, their bodies would also improve. This was the reason why the spiritual herbs were willing to follow them. Similarly, even if these spiritual herbs followed the little medicine fairy, she wouldn't directly eat them. When it was really necessary, she would at most pull out a small stalk, and they would slowly recover. Of course, under the influence of her body, the recovery would be very fast. Thus, those spiritual herbs were very willing to hand over. As long as they could stay by her side, there was no pressure at all. In any case, the spiritual herbs that were handed over could be quickly replenished. Chapter 1736. The little medicine fairy looked very beautiful, just like a fairy. Or perhaps she was originally a fairy. She looked incomparably beautiful. The eyes of the disciples lit up, but they didn't dare to look at her too much, lest they be accused of blasphemy. Etienne didn't feel anything. He had seen many women like the little medicine fairy. For example, the goddess of luck. As long as her cultivation wasn't low, her appearance wouldn't be bad. Even if her appearance was ordinary, her temperament was amazing, and she still looked extremely beautiful. The more one cultivated, The more obvious it was that appearance was not the key, but the temperament and momentum of the body. It was useless to just have a good appearance. In the end, she would become a plaything of others. Strength was the key. For this reason, Etianyin looked the little medicine fairy up and down. What amazed him the most was the body of the medicine god. Apart from the body of the medicine god, he didn't think there was much else. Of course, there were still some bright spots. For example, talent and cultivation were all very bright spots. The little medicine fairy, the daughter of the medicine god, is really domineering. The descendants of these high-ranking figures were extremely amazing, and the daughter of the medicine god even had the body of the medicine god. It was possible that the medicine god also had the body of the medicine god, and his daughter inherited his talent and physique. No wonder there are god emperors. Elixirs are really helpful to one's cultivation. Tianyin shook his head. Now he knew why the medicine god temple had god emperors. There were so many amazing geniuses and such a special physique. They looked for extremely precious elixirs and piled up their strength bit by bit. This way, while their cultivation was stable, they would have more time to comprehend. Only when they comprehended enough could they break through to a higher cultivation level. As long as they were in the early stage of cultivation, they didn't need to worry about anything. They only needed to continue to comprehend the great insights, especially the insights of the god emperors, which naturally gave them some access. If it were any other force that had no experience in this area, it would be like crossing a river by groping for stones. The difficulty was extremely high. From this point, it could be seen that the medicine god temple's refusal to cooperate with other forces was excusable. They were extremely arrogant and disdained to associate themselves with cultivators from the outside world. They were invincible existences on their own. From the looks of it, he should not be controlled by the evil spirit race, but he has no interest in the evil spirit race. Could it be that he really wants to break through to the Divine Lord realm and settle everything by himself? Tianyin checked the surrounding situation. Other than the little medicine fairy, there were a few other elder-level heavenly deities who had descended. However, the true main character was the little medicine fairy. In theory, the others could also be considered the main characters. After all, they were all elders, but they were not as attractive as the little medicine fairy, so they were overlooked. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, I will work hard. I will obtain a higher ranking. I will also work hard. I won't let Princess Little Medicine Fairy down. I've worked hard for so many years just for this moment. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They began to shout loudly and fiercely, all wanting to be the first to show themselves. But at the end, it was a mess. Only when the first few shouted out could it be heard clearly. The rest of them were in a mess. Tianyin, who was at the side, immediately laughed. It had to be said that this kind of situation was not rare, or rather, it was common. This group of young and energetic disciples must be filled with admiration for the little medicine fairy. Even the female disciples worshipped her greatly. There were quite a few female disciples here, and they were almost split in half. There was no discrimination here. The treatment of the female disciples was not bad, at least on the surface. The little medicine fairy smiled and said to them, I have heard that you have such thoughts. I hope that you will be able to obtain a good ranking here. If there are any outstanding performances, I will also give you a special reward. Special reward? I must obtain Princess Little Medicine Fairy's special reward. I also want to obtain Princess Little Medicine Fairy's special reward. It must be mine. No, it's mine. Their eyes were shining as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They were filled with high spirits and were ready to explode at any time. In the dense spiritual energy here, they did not care about anything else. They only wanted to show off their skills and let the little medicine fairy see their best side. They had never thought that the little medicine fairy would take a fancy to them and then become the medicine god's son-in-law. This was impossible. In terms of status and cultivation, it was almost impossible. The gap between the two was too great. They could only look up to him and admire him. Tianyin shook his head. He had not been in such a situation for a long time. The hot-blooded era had long since ceased to exist. Right now, He needed to have an absolute sense of responsibility. He did not dare to relax in the slightest. All right, everyone calm down. Prepare to begin the competition. I will now state the rules. During the competition, no one is allowed to disturb the other participants. Violators will never be able to participate in the alchemy competition. When the little medicine fairy announced the rules, her expression became incomparably solemn. There was no longer that amiable expression from before. She was truly like an impartial judge. Shortly after, the little medicine fairy waved her hand, and a jade tablet appeared in the air. She waved it forward, and it quickly fell in front of them. There was also a tablet in front of Etienne. He reached out and grabbed it. It was incomparably smooth and warm. 178. Without a doubt, this was a participant's tablet. It represented one's number. This was a very normal thing, and there was no difference. This is your participant's tablet. Those who lose it will be considered a failure. Little Fairy Medicine waved her hand again, and a large bell fell from the sky. When it hit the ground, it made a dong sound. This large bell contains the content of the competition, which is also the content of the first round. However, if you want to obtain the content of the competition, you will have to throw in an elixir. If it is suitable, you will obtain the content of the first round. If it is not suitable, you will not obtain the corresponding content and will have to refine again. First, let me make one thing clear. If you throw in a pill that is suitable, then you will not be able to refine the corresponding pill. No matter how many pills you make, it will be meaningless. The moment this rule was announced, the crowd was in an uproar. They did not expect that the content of the first round would not be announced by the little medicine fairy. Instead, they would have to obtain it themselves. No one could see what was inside this large bell. They only saw a small opening on the outside that was just enough for a pill to be thrown in. As long as they met the requirements, they would obtain the content of the first round. Otherwise, they would have to refine again. Chapter 1737. What kind of rule is this? This is the first time I've heard of it. Princess Little Medicine Fairy's hosting is indeed different. Making it so special means that we can't even obtain a question. Doesn't that mean we can't even pass the first round? Isn't this a little too difficult? The difficulty is a little high. Everyone was dumbfounded by this rule. In the past, this kind of situation had never happened before. Only when Little Medicine Fairy hosted this competition did a new rule appear. Furthermore, it was very special. This was equivalent to setting a threshold. If one couldn't even pass the threshold, they wouldn't even be able to obtain a question. I believe everyone has guessed it. The reason is that simple. I've set a threshold here. If you can't even pass this threshold, don't even think about passing the first round. Little Medicine Fairy swept her eyes over them and was very satisfied with their situation. As for the time, it will be set to a week. This includes the time needed to pass the first round. Now, let the competition begin. Little Medicine Fairy did not explain in detail. With a flick of her hand, a crystal flew into the air and began to melt bit by bit. It was obvious that the time limit would end when this crystal completely disappeared. Everyone was instantly dumbfounded. There was no hint at all. How would they go to compete? Princess Little Medicine Fairy, is there no hint at all? For example, what kind of pill, what grade, what type? Someone immediately shouted loudly, hoping for Little Medicine Fairy to give them some hint. Everyone pricked up their ears to listen to Little Medicine Fairy's explanation. There is no hint. As long as you put in a suitable pill, you will be given the corresponding question. Time waits for no man, the faster the better. If the originally suitable pill is refined by someone else, your chances will become even smaller. The Little Medicine Fairy smiled sweetly, looking like a little devil's smile. Etienne roughly understood what she meant. It seemed like many disciples would be eliminated in the first round. This threshold was not only about who was faster, but also who was more accurate. It was mainly about being fast. If one was not fast enough, they wouldn't even be able to obtain a question. After all, even if they were not suitable, they would immediately refine another pill until they succeeded. But sometimes it really depended on luck. Etienne was not one of them. He squinted his eyes, wanted to see through this large bell. He wanted to see what was inside the bell. With the help of his appraisal eye, he quickly saw through the thick bell and saw what was inside. The big-mouthed demonic flower. He didn't expect to find a big-mouthed demonic flower inside the bell. It was the kind that specialized in devouring life. At the same time, it was also a very precious spirit medicine. Because they had cultivated to become spirits, they were somewhat similar to the blood ginseng sitting on the little medicine fairy's shoulder. As the examiner here, the little fairy medicine naturally had a different idea. Her idea was to let her companions help with the examination. However, it was not a problem to get this demonic flower to help with the examination. After all, it was already a spirit medicine, and it had even gained sentience. In terms of cultivation, this demonic flower's cultivation was at the heavenly venerate level. It was more than enough to deal with the Lord of Heaven's disciples. This meant that there was definitely no problem in terms of fairness. The big-mouthed demonic flower, only the little medicine fairy, who has the body of a medicine god, would be able to get these to come and help. Onion shook his head. It was impossible for ordinary disciples to know what was inside. Only heavenly venerates and above would know what was inside the bell. This meant that only Onion knew what was inside. Who would have thought that Onion would hide it so deeply? After the void bloodline was upgraded to the maximum level, it could also hide one's cultivation. Unless one reached out and grabbed someone's body, they wouldn't be able to detect it even if an upper-level celestial was standing right in front of them. This was the benefit of the void bloodline. It could completely hide one's cultivation. Upgrading it to the maximum level would not be a loss at all. In the future, it could be used to deceive enemies and become a model of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. After knowing that the big-mouthed demonic flower was inside, Onion felt that it would be much easier to deal with it. He just needed to target it a little. The big-mouthed demonic flower liked fire attribute and metal attribute items. Basically, as long as it matched these two attributes, it would definitely succeed. Then, he turned and walked over to the spirit medicine at the side. The materials provided for the alchemy competition were actually all in the vicinity. The spirit medicine around the competition venue could all be used to refine elixirs. The closer to the periphery, the higher the grade. However, if one didn't match the requirements and picked a high-grade spirit medicine to refine, it would be equivalent to getting 0 points. They might even be criticized for being wasteful. Generally speaking, no one would do this. In any case, any elixir refined here could not be taken away. Hence, no matter how many spirit medicines were given, it would be meaningless. In any case, they could not be taken away. If the refinement failed, they would be blamed instead. It was really not worth it. While everyone was thinking, Onion took the lead and went out to look for spirit medicine. He was considered to be the fastest. When the others saw this, they were slightly taken aback. Then, they quickly went out to pick spirit medicine. They did not know what elixir they were refining. In any case, they would refine it first. It was just that the herbs they chose to refine were not of very low grade. This way, it would be a little safer. Onion did not choose any high-grade spirit medicine. He just randomly picked up 2 spirit medicines and walked over to refine them. With a slight lift of his hand, flames appeared, and he began to refine the spirit medicine. Speaking of which, he had not refined elixirs for a long time. He had been busy with all kinds of battles. It had been a long time since he had the free time to refine elixirs. Now that he was refining elixirs, he still had some nostalgia. As the grade was relatively low, he easily succeeded with a little refining a very ordinary grade elixir. The other disciples glanced at it and felt very curious. Refining so fast. This grade should be very low, right? It can't be. This kid can't think that he can pass with such a low grade, right? God knows. He looks very unfamiliar. It seems like he doesn't move around much. Anyway, he is the one who will be embarrassed. I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to succeed in one go. None of them were optimistic about Onion. They felt that Onion was silly. If it were other examiners, they might be more casual. But in front of the little fairy medicine, they still had to perform. Even if they failed, at least the elixir they presented would not be deceptive. Onion could not be bothered with them. He came in front of the big bell and threw the elixir into it. The big-mouthed demonic flower inside swallowed the elixir without hesitation. After a while, it shook in the big bell and nodded its head in satisfaction. Then it spat out a stone slab, and it landed in Etienne's hand. Chapter 1738. Etienne simply took out a pill and easily exchanged it for the first round's question. Wasn't this too easy? Especially such a simple pill that could be said to be very ordinary. They didn't see what pill it was. Because they were the first to go out, they only knew that Etienne walked one round outside and picked out a low-grade spirit herb. Such a low-grade spirit herb was able to succeed, which made them exclaim in disbelief. They originally thought that it had to be of slightly higher grade, or else it would be impossible to succeed. But now it seemed that they had thought too much. Even a low-grade spirit herb could still succeed. As for the spirit herb that Etienne took out, they didn't take the same one. After all, taking the same one would undoubtedly be equivalent to failure. Previously, Little Medicine Fairy had already said that they couldn't refine the same pill. If they could refine the same pill, then there would be no meaning in setting up this test. Oh, your luck is not bad. You succeeded on your first try? Little Medicine Fairy looked at Etienne with great interest. She didn't expect someone to succeed on his first try, and it was a perfect success at that. It was a little out of her expectations. Although there was a threshold, this big-mouthed demonic flower couldn't be filled with anything. It really had to match the effects of two attributes to be able to pass. Whoever could see it first would have the priority to pass. As for the later stages, there was a possibility that the model would change. Little Medicine Fairy was really surprised by Etienne's success on his first try. She thought that Etienne was really lucky. This performance made the other disciples wail endlessly. The first to succeed would undoubtedly be more eye-catching. This was really the focus of attention, making them go crazy with jealousy. Especially when they saw Little Medicine Fairy's gaze gathered on Etienne. They couldn't help but want to swallow Etienne. But they couldn't do that. They could only obediently search for spirit herbs to refine pills. Some saw what kind of spirit herb Etienne picked and immediately analyzed it to find out what was going on. Because they couldn't communicate with each other and could only silently think about what was going on. Some of them immediately went to look for the corresponding spiritual herbs after thinking about it. As for Etienne, he couldn't be bothered with them. He took the jade token and walked to the side, standing there in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. This caused the surrounding disciples to burn with anxiety, and they wished for nothing more than to slap him. What is this kid doing? Shouldn't he hurry up and start the first round of the competition? Exactly, what is he doing? He's just standing there like a fool. What is he doing? Could it be that he's thinking about how to concoct pills? The questions are too difficult. All of them cursed in their hearts. Some of them were harvesting spiritual herbs while paying attention to what was happening. They wanted to take a look at similar questions as a reference. This way, when Etienne fails or succeeds, he would have a reference point. After all, this was only the first round. Even if Etienne won first place, he would still be the winner of the first round. There were still many more rounds to go. Generally speaking, there were at least 3 rounds of refining pills, so there was no need to be overly anxious. But now that Etienne was standing there in a daze, everyone was burning with anxiety. In the end, they couldn't be bothered with Etienne anymore and went to harvest spiritual herbs. This wasn't something that Etienne did on purpose. It was written on the token, "Refining pills will appear in 2 days. Wait here quietly." This made him not know whether to laugh or cry. This kid really didn't play by the rules. He actually made him wait like a fool. He originally thought that he would be the first to finish first, so that he could seize the initiative and obtain a good result. Who knew that he didn't want him to finish first, and instead took his time. As for the other disciples, they all thought that Etienne was thinking hard about how to complete the questions. While he was waiting, other disciples quickly began to hand over their finished pills. Some failed, some succeeded. Those who succeeded were wild with joy, while those who failed naturally continued to search for other spiritual herbs. Those who observed those who succeeded slightly discovered that there were obvious bright spots. They were all metal attribute and fire attribute spiritual herbs. Hence, they all started to refine. In the end, all of them succeeded. But just as everyone thought that they would definitely succeed, there were suddenly people who failed. Not only did failures appear, but they also failed consecutively. All the effects were useless, making them exclaim in shock. How is this possible? I clearly refined according to their method, and it's not the same type of spiritual herb, but brand new spiritual herbs. This should be in accordance with the rules. That's right, it should definitely be in accordance with the rules. I also refined according to that method. It's impossible for me to fail. All of them felt that it was inconceivable. They were all experienced divine alchemists. How did they possibly make such a mistake? Quiet. Little Medicine Fairy waved her hand and said coldly, "If you fail, can't you try other spiritual herbs? Do you think that you can always succeed with this method?" Little Medicine Fairy's words made them shiver, and they looked at the big bell in disbelief. Could it be that the requirements for the taste had changed? This was really possible. After succeeding so many times, it was very likely that they changed to another method. It did not need to be a combination of fire and metal attributes, but other tastes. This time, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. They could only bury their heads to search for other spiritual herbs. At least the previous ones were no longer effective. But the most depressed person was still Etianyan. He obtained first place, and after obtaining the question, he stood there in a daze. He realized that the second place who obtained the question quickly went to search for spiritual herbs to refine, including the third place. Only he was standing there in a daze. It was obvious that this was a misdirection. Many people were too concerned about the first place and did not care about the second place at all. Now, they thought that Etianyan was stupid and did not know how to solve this question. Jiang Kai was exhausted, and the first time was completely based on luck. This little girl really knows how to play. Etianyan held the jade token and looked at Little Medicine Fairy. He was not angry, but he felt that Little Medicine Fairy was very clever and knew how to play with people's hearts. But from this point, it could be seen that the questions might be different or even similar. It was just that all eyes were gathered on him, and the other people's attention became less. Over time, everyone slowly returned to their normal rhythm. Little Medicine Fairy also looked at him, and with a charming smile, she lifted her hand and lightly touched the jade token. Soon, a line of words appeared on the jade token in Etianyan's hand. "It has been hard on you. Stay here for a while. Even if your performance is not good, I will still give you a small reward." Chapter 1739. If they had any complaints, they would immediately calm down after seeing the Little Medicine Fairy's attitude. The Little Medicine Fairy's attitude did not have the dignity of a superior. She would still speak up if something was wrong and propose a compensation condition. This was good. It meant that the Little Medicine Fairy was very friendly. As for what the reward would be, he was looking forward to it. "All right, looks like I can only wait a bit longer." Etianyan did not have any complaints. He just sat there and meditated. How the disciples around him talked about him was their problem. It had nothing to do with him. Under this kind of situation, he, who was originally the focus of attention, became a lucky guy. He was just a guy who was lucky at the start. When faced with the real question, he could not think of a way to deal with it. This caused many disciples to look down on him. They felt that only people like him would try their luck. Casually plucking some spiritual herbs from the outside and refining them into elixirs, and even succeeding, was completely based on luck. When faced with questions that required strength, he would not be able to pass. This caused them to look down on him. No wonder the Little Medicine Fairy wanted to make up for it. She definitely had to make up for it. If it were some of the more strict superiors, they would not care about their psychological feelings. They would do whatever they wanted, and their own decisions were the only ones. As time passed, after 2 days of preparation, most of the disciples had successfully obtained the first question. Some immediately started refining elixirs, while others entered deep meditation. As for those who had not even touched the threshold, they were extremely anxious and kept trying to refine elixirs. However, there were some who failed again and again. They became more and more dispirited and disheartened. However, when they saw that the first person to pass, Tianyun, still had not made a move, they laughed out loud. This foolish brat, he still hasn't made a move? He has already foolishly sat there for 2 days. I wonder if he will sit there for a week. What's the point of passing so early? What a joke. I feel like I'm losing face now. Indeed, it's incomparably embarrassing. I was a little envious before, but how could I be envious now? It's simply embarrassing. All of them laughed, feeling a little better in their hearts. Little did they know that this feeling was just self-consolation. There was no meaning to it. If they knew why Tianyun did not move, they would definitely not be able to laugh. This was all part of the Little Medicine Fairy's plan. As expected, after 2 days, a line of words appeared on the jade pendant in Tianyun's hand. Increase the effect of the pill you just refined by 10 times. It was a very easy task to concoct pills. Naturally, it was extremely easy for Tianyun. To other god alchemists, the difficulty was not low. Previously, the pills Tianyun concocted were of a lower grade, but to strengthen it by 10 times, the meaning behind it would be different. At the very least, one would need to be a peak 3rd grade god pill refiner to be able to concoct it. Tianyun's current grade had already risen to the 6th grade when he participated in the alchemy competition. He had spent a large amount of proficiency to level up to that point. He had to have absolute confidence to win this match, so that he could enter the Medicine God's Temple. If he did not come out on top, not to mention entering the Medicine God's Temple, he would not even be able to get close to it. The difficulty is really not low. It seems that it is indeed a test of the level of alchemy. If the level of alchemy is too low, naturally you will not be able to pass. Tianyun got up, turned around, and walked towards the periphery. His action once again attracted the attention of many cultivators. When they saw him picking the same elixir as before, many cultivators' faces changed, but they did not say anything. They could only shut up obediently. There were 2 ways to increase the effect of an original pill by 10 times. The first way was to crazily stack the pills and successfully fuse them in one go. The second way was to add other spirit herbs with extremely fierce effects to increase the effect of the pill. Tianyun chose the first method. He was too lazy to choose other overbearing elixirs to throw in. He directly used the same elixir to refine. However, this was often the most difficult choice. Even ordinary elixirs were not easy to refine. Tianyun chose the effect of the highest difficulty. He guessed that by doing so, he would definitely get more points. Soon, he collected the elixirs and began to refine. Naturally, he suppressed his own strength. The flames were not the best, they were all relatively ordinary. However, his technique seemed to be very stable, and he quickly quenched the elixir. Under this quenching, a pill was quickly condensed. This pill was much more solid than the previous one, and there was a faint luster on it. Everything was so stable, there was no problem, just like a veteran alchemy, as stable as Mount Tai. This method made many of the audience's eyes light up. Tianyun, who had been disappointing, now attracted their attention again with an amazing method, making them cry out. This alchemy method is amazing. Why didn't he refine such a good method before? That's right, he could succeed in one go. Why does he need to think so much? What's going on? Could it be that he did it on purpose? The surrounding disciples were all discussing. There was clearly such a method, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. They were puzzled. After successfully refining the pill, Tianyun took the pill to the large bell and stuffed it in. Soon, the big-mouthed demonic flower swallowed it. Not long after, the number plate on Tianyun's body was sucked in and quickly spat out. At this time, there was a 10 on it, which meant that he had obtained 10 points, a perfect score. He was not the first to complete the first stage, but he was the first to obtain a perfect score. Immediately, the crowd was in an uproar. They did not know how this evaluation was done. There were clearly people who were faster than him and of a higher grade, but they could not obtain a perfect score. What was going on? Little Medicine Fairy's beautiful eyes flickered. She looked up and down at Yi Tianyun and smiled. Interesting, it seems that not only is his luck good, but his ability is also good. It's just that this competition is a little disappointing. What disappointed her was not Yi Tianyun, but all of the disciples. She was very disappointed in them. Under the crowd's astonishment, the competition continued. However, it was already too late when they realized what was going on. The reason was very simple. The first stage's topic looked different, but it was actually the same. It was to increase the effect of the previous pill by 10 times. Chapter 1740. As time passed, a week quickly passed. The crystal floating above completely disappeared, signifying the end of the trial. Those who did not complete the trial would be considered failures, while those who succeeded would receive corresponding points. Time's up. At the little medicine fairy's announcement, everyone stopped. Some were happy, some felt that it was okay, while others were dejected and unwilling. After sweeping a glance at their expressions, the little medicine fairy looked at them without the slightest hint of a smile. To tell you the truth, your performances have disappointed me. No matter who you are, you all have disappointed me. The moment these words were said, all the disciples were stunned. Some of them felt that their scores were not bad, so why were they disappointed? Could it be that not getting 10 points would disappoint the little medicine fairy? But that wasn't right. Didn't Yi Tianyun get 10 points? The little medicine fairy was talking about everyone. This included Yi Tianyun, who had obtained 10 points. Actually, other than Yi Tianyun, there were other disciples who had obtained 10 points. Why would the little medicine fairy be disappointed? It seems that you don't know why I'm disappointed. Let me tell you now. The little medicine fairy waved her hand, and the large bell flew up. The big-mouthed demonic flower was sitting on the ground, using its feelers to rub its stomach. It seemed to be very full. It had eaten so many elixirs. How could it not feel full? There were so many participants, and each of them had fed it pills. Some of them had even fed it several pills. It must have been stuffed to the point of bursting and needed time to digest them. It's the big-mouthed demonic flower, they exclaimed. They didn't expect that the thing inside the large bell would be the big-mouthed demonic flower. I know, the big-mouthed demonic flower likes metal and fire elixirs. As long as you pair these two well, you will definitely pass. No wonder it needs these two elixirs, so it's the big-mouthed demonic flower inside. After understanding what was going on, all of them finally understood why they had made such a choice, instead of just casually refining the pill. That's right. The judge for you is the big-mouthed demonic flower. Actually, if you want to know how to pass, you should go through the small opening in the large bell and carefully feel the aura inside. As a divine pill master, it won't be too difficult to judge. At most, you just need to spend a bit more time to carefully judge. But none of you did. You relied entirely on luck and luck. Little medicine fairy's gaze was sharp as she said to them with a straight face, "Is this the ability of a divine pill refiner? If you didn't even know the most basic method, then what was the point of refining pills? Some people rely on luck, but could it be that all of you rely on luck and luck? Was it because I saw that you guys were poisoned? Did I also rely on luck? By the time I get it right, all of you will be dead." After learning the truth, the disciples lowered their heads and glared at Yi Tianyun with hatred. If it wasn't for Yi Tianyun leading the way, they would have gone to check it out in detail instead of searching for spiritual herbs to refine pills. Yi Tianyun shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He naturally knew about this method, but he had the appraisal eye, so he could see through it with a glance. Why would he need to go over and check carefully? Wasn't this a waste of time? It didn't matter if others treated him as relying on luck. In any case, it was fine as long as he won. If he really couldn't tell, he would have gone to check instead of guessing. I hope that all of you will reflect on this point. In the later rounds, you must be good at using your own abilities and not rely on luck or luck. Luck may be useful, but I hope to see your strength. Little Medicine Fairy said in a deep voice, "This is the reason why I am not satisfied. There are many points that I am satisfied with, but this is the only point that I am extremely dissatisfied with. This point is over. Next, we will talk about the first person who succeeded. The reason why he didn't move for 2 days was actually because I gave the order. The Jade token stated that the competition would only be revealed after 2 days. That's why he didn't move for 2 days. I will explain it here. As for why he didn't move for 2 days, I believe that all of you already know. The content of the first round, although everyone's actions are different, the content is the same. That is to refine a pill that has 10 times the effect of the previous pill. It doesn't matter if you can't refine a pill that has 10 times the effect. It depends on the situation to determine the points. The limit is the number of points. This is the reason why even though the grade is higher than the previous ones, the points are so low. I designed it this way to prevent any of you from being opportunistic and seeing the content of the first round in advance, then choosing a lower grade pill to refine. I repeat, I do not wish to see too many opportunistic people. I need to see the determination in your hearts, see your own choices, and not blindly stare at others. Little Medicine Fairy spat out a series of words, causing them to become completely clear-headed. Only now did they know why Tianyun was standing there in a daze. If they knew that the content of the first round was to increase the effect of a pill by 10 times, then everyone would have refined ordinary pills. Thus, those who did not know dug a hole for themselves. In order to show off in front of Little Medicine Fairy, they specially refined a good grade pill. When they found out about the content of the first round, none of them could laugh anymore. It was simply a huge hole. At this moment, the surrounding audience started to discuss. Knowing that Tianyun was only part of the plan, they felt extremely helpless. It seemed like they had all thought wrongly before, thinking that Tianyun did not have the ability and relied on luck. However, there was a bit of luck involved. He just happened to obtain an ordinary pill and successfully passed. As the effect increased by 10 times, the difficulty did not increase by much. After knowing about it, some of them really had to suffer in silence, unable to voice out their bitterness. If they really set out the question, then they would be eliminated. We were wrong. We will properly reflect on ourselves. That's right, Princess Little Medicine Fairy. We will properly reflect on ourselves in the next round. We will not be opportunistic. Believe us, we will strive to obtain a higher score in the next round. All of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, not wanting to disappoint Little Medicine Fairy. After all, they still had a chance. All right, I will believe you all. I hope that in the next round, you will really work hard. Don't try to show off in front of me. To me, the best performance is not in the process, but in the results. Get into the top 10, or even the top 5, that is a true performance. Only then will you be worthy of my admiration. Little Medicine Fairy said sternly. Her words of encouragement were really very effective. All of the hot-blooded youths started to shout loudly, wanting to repent. Tianyun shook his head. He was really used as a tool, but he had to admit that Little Medicine Fairy's ability was not bad. With just a little bit of planning, everything was within her grasp. Chapter 1741. Tianyun was very appreciative of Little Medicine Fairy's meticulous plan. She must have already considered the possible outcome, so she immediately arranged the corresponding plan. Whether it was Tianyun or whoever won first place, they would have to wait here obediently. However, this first place was a little beyond the Little Medicine Fairy's expectation. She really didn't expect that someone would finish so quickly and rely on luck. It was really a little beyond her expectations. It was really too fast. Fortunately, everything was according to her plan, and nothing unexpected happened. Next, let's look at the scores. The overall score is not bad. There are more than 10 people who got the full score of 10. This is a good result. As for the others who got 9 points, there are also many of them. I'm satisfied with the results. First it was the blame, then it was the praise. She pointed out the mistakes and praised the right ones. I hope you can get better results in the next round. After all, this is just the beginning. If you are too arrogant now, you may lose in the later rounds. The Little Medicine Fairy smiled slightly. Now take a break. After a few hours, the second round of the competition will continue. After the announcement, all the disciples breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, they didn't continue to blame them. What the little medicine fairy had said earlier had truly made them feel ashamed. They wished that they could dig a hole and bury themselves in it. After this episode, the eyes of many disciples and the audience once again focused on Etienne. Previously, they mistakenly thought that Etienne would not be selected, but now it seemed that they were wrong. There was no doubt that Etienne would become a big competitor and might even get a very good ranking, especially the alchemy technique. They were all divine alchemists, so they all knew it. Such a stable alchemy technique made them look at Etienne in a new light. As a fellow contestant, they were full of hostility towards him, but as an audience disciple, they were somewhat looking forward to Etienne's performance. Every alchemy competition, they hoped that there would be a few geniuses so that the medicine temple could become more and more prosperous. There was competition, but it was better to focus on fair competition instead of using underhanded methods. In the blink of an eye, a few hours of rest had passed. The second round was about to begin. Everyone stared at the little medicine fairy as if they were facing a great enemy. Hopefully, the little fairy medicine would not come up with any more strange questions. The first trial had already eliminated many disciples. Fortunately, it was only a small portion, which proved that her overall strength was not bad. Especially the sudden change of taste in the later stages, this was really a scam. The change was quite big. Originally, it liked the metal and fire attributes, but in an instant, it changed to the wood and water attributes. These two different attributes had to be refined again. Although he could refine it with a little more time, he still needed to spend a little more time. This was especially true for those who concocted higher-grade elixirs. They would be shooting themselves in the foot. Some concocted high-grade pills, and the effects would be increased by 10 times, depending on their own abilities. Some could only concoct pills with 2 or 3 times the effects, and they could only get 2 or 3 points, which was really a huge loss. This was the result of wanting to save face. It was all for the sake of winning a beauty smile, but the one who would lose face would be himself. You don't have to worry so much. I only set up a threshold for the first stage. It won't be like this for the second stage. It'll be relatively more straightforward. Seeing their nervous expressions, the little fairy medicine couldn't help but smile. The content of the second stage is very simple. Of course, you have to take the items first. Shortly after, the little fairy medicine flicked her hand, and another large bell fell. With a dong, it heavily smashed on the ground, causing many of the participants to tremble. It was this large bell again, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. This was the same large bell from before, and now they were seeing it again. How could they not be worried? They said they wouldn't mess around, but now they were messing around again? Don't worry, there is no big-mouth demonic flower inside. What you need to do now is to take the items inside according to your number. It's that simple. The little fairy medicine said with a beaming smile. They all looked at each other in dismay, but they could only brace themselves and go up. Very quickly, according to the number, they all went up and took out a small bottle of elixirs, but they didn't know what was inside. Every participant took out a small bottle of elixirs. There are no words on them, so no one knew what was inside. However, no one opened it. After all, the little fairy medicine didn't say that they could open it, so it was best not to open it. After everyone had taken out a bottle, the little fairy medicine nodded. It seems that everyone has obtained the corresponding bottle. In fact, there's a poison pill inside, and every poison pill has a different poison. This round of the competition is very simple. All you need to do is to consume this poison pill and then slowly sense what kind of poison you've been afflicted with. Once you know what poison it is, you can go find the antidote and refine it yourself. You will also have 1 week. Of course, the prerequisite is that you can endure for a week. This poison pill will become more powerful as time passes. If you pass out, that means you're out of the competition. You have to hurry up. The little fairy medicine explained with a beaming smile. Just what was this? Everyone's expression changed. They had never seen such a question before. The little fairy medicine said she wouldn't trick them, but in the blink of an eye, she ruthlessly tricked them. This question was not just a trap, it was a giant trap. Not only did they have to test the poison inside, They also had to pick the spirit herbs to refine. During the refining process, they would also be disturbed by the poison. This meant that there was a possibility of failure. Refining pills required one to be completely focused and in a stable state. Only then would it be easy to succeed. If they could only find the antidote at the very end, even if they were refining pills, their hands would tremble. At that time, the chances of failure would increase substantially. As the number of failures increased, they would be more and more poisoned. It was simply a trap. When Tianyin heard this question, he immediately felt embarrassed. Will I be poisoned if I take this pill? Tianyin looked at the pill bottle in his hand. He didn't know what poison was inside, but with a strong physique, he didn't dare to say that he was immune to poison, but at least low-grade poisons had no effect on him. Chapter 1742. Tianyin had a strange expression, but he did not show it. He could only pretend to be poisoned. Otherwise, if he ate it and told the little medicine fairy that the poison had no effect on him, she would definitely check his body. If she did, the result would be that his cultivation would be exposed. The void bloodline could perfectly conceal his cultivation, but it was only limited to probing and not close contact. Close contact would definitely expose them. There was no doubt about that. Thus, he could only pretend to be poisoned and pick the spirit herbs so that his actions could be seen. When the time came, he would explain the situation to the little medicine fairy, and there would naturally be no problem. That's the general content of the question. The earlier you solve it, the higher your score will be. The full score is 30 points. Those who were at the bottom before and thought that their strength was not limited to this, now is the time for you to make a comeback. The little medicine fairy flicked her finger and the crystal began to melt. It was no different from before, quickly dissolving. In the beginning, each of them quickly opened the medicine bottles and carefully smelled the smell of the poisonous pills to identify the corresponding toxicity within. Being able to identify one was one. As for the rest, they would have to rely on themselves to sense it. This required one's knowledge of poison to see how much they knew. The more they knew, the more they would be able to tell which poison was causing the reaction. Then, they would be able to use the right medicine to cure it. Tianyin immediately identified the poison with the appraisal, what kind of toxicity it contains, what kind of ingredients it contains, everything appeared in front of him one by one. So that's how it is. It's not hard to cure it, and the difficulty is quite suitable. Tianyin nodded. He did not know what the other participants' poison pills were like, but the difficulty should be the same. That way, it would be a fair competition. Correspondingly, with their cultivation, it would be very difficult to cure the poison with their own power. Even if they could, it would take more than a week. Just as he was about to pretend to be poisoned, someone in front of him suddenly stood up and came to the little medicine fairy. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, this disciple has successfully cured the poison. This disciple's body is immune to poison. So after consuming this poison pill, I immediately detoxified myself. Is this a success? Tianyin looked up. This disciple really did have a special body, but it was acquired through self-cultivation. It was obvious that he usually took all kinds of poisonous pills and detoxified himself. He also absorbed a portion of the poison, allowing his body to form a certain amount of antibodies. Unless it was a very strong poison, it wouldn't have any effect on him. In theory, this can be counted as your own ability and can be counted as points. However, it cannot be counted as full points, only half points. The little medicine fairy looked at him and smiled faintly. Then are you willing to take 15 points now? If you don't want it, I can give you a poison pill that you can't detoxify right now and let you dispel it. The disciple who came up was stunned. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to get full marks. If he could only get half of the points, then it would be meaningless. Then I'm willing to take a brand new poisonous pill. The disciple gritted his teeth. Although he was unwilling, he had no choice. He didn't want to get 15 points. Not bad, you have ambition. The little medicine fairy smiled and flicked her hand. A bottle of poisonous pills landed in the disciple's hand, indicating that he could begin. This was just the beginning, and he had already passed. Moreover, He had obtained a high score by relying on his own detoxification. This caused an uproar among the crowd. They didn't expect that it could be played like this. Even if it wasn't full marks, at least there was another method. I almost forgot to add some rules. If you think that you have the ability to detoxify, it is allowed. Whether you use your own ability to detoxify or rely on refining pills, it is considered your own ability. If you only use your own ability to detoxify, the highest score you can get is 15 points. What I want to test now is your ability to dispel the detoxification pill, not your own abilities. Firstly, on the battlefield or in a dangerous situation, you might not be poisoned, but that doesn't mean that your companions won't be poisoned. Furthermore, unless you're absolutely immune to poison, you won't be able to get full marks. After all, the poison pills I provide are only average. A truly serious poison pill can turn you into a pool of blood in a second. This is why I don't give full marks. Your own ability is important, but this is a pill refining competition, not a resistance competition. The Little Medicine Fairy's explanation made everyone feel that it was very reasonable. This was indeed true. Even if one was immune to poison, the same could not be said for their companions. Or perhaps there were many poisons in the world, and they could resist a portion of them. What about the higher grade ones? However, the Little Medicine Fairy was rather open-minded to give 15 points. No matter what, this was considered his own ability, so he specially added the corresponding rules. As expected, the contestant who relied on his own ability to detoxify immediately had his forehead covered with cold sweat after consuming the poison pill. Just based on his previous ability, he couldn't easily detoxify. When Onion saw this scene, he was glad that he didn't play like this. Even if he didn't need to check anything, a score of 15 points was really too low. Looks like I have to put on an act for a while. Onion smiled as he consumed the poison pill. Then, he sat down to meditate and squeezed out a few drops of cold sweat. It looked like he was poisoned. He had to act properly. If he was seen through, it would be really awkward. He didn't ask for full marks, but his score couldn't be too low. Thus, he decided to endure for half a day. From his point of view, anyone who could successfully detoxify within a day would have a chance of getting full marks. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, this disciple has successfully detoxified. At this time, someone succeeded in refining the pill. After consuming the pill, there were no more problems. He came forward to let the Little Medicine Fairy judge his score. The Little Medicine Fairy didn't rush to answer. Instead, she coldly looked at him. You can be eliminated. From now on, be an honest little medicine boy. You are forbidden from participating in the pill refining competition 3 times. Well, what? The contestant was dumbfounded. He didn't expect this result. The other spectators were also shocked. How could this be the result? Princess Little Medicine Fairy, why is this happening? I clearly succeeded in detoxifying. The contestant hurriedly came over to ask. Chapter 1743. Little Medicine Fairy's words caused the participant to take several steps back. His face turned pale and his mouth moved, but he did not say a word of rebuttal. After the spectators heard about it, there was an uproar. They did not expect him to be such a shameless person. They absolutely believed Little Medicine Fairy's words and believed that she would not lie or frame a participant. There was no meaning in this. Just Little Medicine Fairy's status was below the medicine gods, so she would not lie. I've seen everything you've done. I know exactly what kind of poisonous pills you've taken. I know exactly what kind of detoxification pill you used. If you want to bluff your way through, let's see if you can do it. If you can do it, I will give you full marks. If you can do it, you will be banned from the competition. Little Medicine Fairy's voice was cold. You really disappoint me. I do not wish to see something like this happen again. Little Medicine Fairy angrily waved her hand, and that participant was sent flying. He vomited blood and flew out of the arena, heavily injured. From this, it could be seen how angry Little Medicine Fairy was. It was already good that she did not want his life. Playing tricks in front of her was an affront to her dignity. Many participants looked at each other. A few of them really wanted to do the same thing as the previous participant. This poison pill could really be blocked by some of them, but they wanted to obtain high marks, so they wanted to bluff their way through. The result of bluffing was Little Medicine Fairy's rage. Once she was enraged, it was very scary. He was merciless when he started to crush them. The key was that from now on, he would really be a little medicine boy, quietly planting spirit herbs in a corner. After all, he had lost all his face. How could he dare to continue walking around here? He had even been banned from participating in the alchemy competition, which could allow him to soar through the ranks. Little Medicine Fairy was giving him a chance. She only banned him from participating a few times, not permanently. A permanent ban was equivalent to being banished to the cold palace, never to rise again. This group of idiots, do they really think Little Medicine Fairy can't see it? Etienne shook his head. Although he wanted to pretend, he definitely had to follow the correct method to pick the spirit herbs and then refine them into detoxification pills. As a powerful celestial god, Little Medicine Fairy could observe every minute action. Therefore, she knew exactly what kind of antidote they were concocting. If they wanted to cause trouble under her watch, they would be courting death. Their cultivation bases were only at the Lord of Heaven. A mere Lord of Heaven dared to play tricks in front of the gods. Did he have a death wish? However, they were naive enough to think that they would not be discovered. Reality was a slap to their faces, and it was a heavy slap to their faces. Their faces were slapped swollen, letting them know that it was useless to play petty tricks. Half a day later, Etienne got up and went to search for spirit herbs. He very accurately found the corresponding spirit herbs and took them back to refine them into a detoxification pill. After taking a moment to regulate his breathing, he stood up and said, "Princess Little Medicine Fairy, this disciple has successfully detoxified the poison." Etienne wasn't the first person to successfully detoxify the poison, but he was definitely one of the best. He didn't want to be the first. As long as he could get the first place, it was enough. Little Medicine Fairy nodded her head and said with a satisfied smile, "Not bad, not bad. The combination was perfect. You pass. You have obtained a full score of 30 points." Etienne once again got a full score of 30 points, which made many of the contestants feel the pressure doubled. They didn't expect that in the first level he relied on luck, but in this level he showed his own strength, easily refining detoxification pill, which shocked them again. The spectators at the side sighed, feeling that Etienne was truly capable. He wasn't just strong in the first round, but weak in the second round. In an instant, the surrounding competitors became even more hostile towards him. Etienne didn't have the slightest bit of hostility towards them. After all, he wasn't on the same level as these competitors. Treating them as opponents? That would be thinking too highly of them. From the start to the end, Etienne didn't treat them as opponents. Treating them as opponents was too degrading. No matter what, his opponents had to be at least tier 6 or 7 God Pill Masters. Facing anyone below this level was really meaningless. Even if he won, he would still be bullying the weak. Etienne's score easily shot up to the top, reaching the top 10. He could be considered as a nameless kid, but he managed to reach the top. At this moment, many of the spectators started to discuss about Etienne. They didn't know where Etienne came from. According to the standard, no matter what, he shouldn't be a nobody. For example, the other top rankers were all famous geniuses, so it wasn't surprising for them to be at the top. However, Etienne was like a dark horse, ruthlessly killing his way out, shocking them all. With regards to these discussions, Etienne wasn't interested. No matter what they said, he pretended not to hear them. Like an old monk in meditation, he sat on the same spot, waiting for the next round. Some felt that Etienne's actions were unreasonable. Some felt that Etienne was too pretentious. He was clearly quite capable, but he chose this moment to explode. Everyone had their own thoughts. Little Medicine Fairy was very satisfied with Etienne's situation. Not arrogant, not arrogant. This was the attitude he should have. As a God Pill Master, one's attitude was very important. For people like Etienne, it was especially important. As time passed, the first 2 rounds of the competition ended just like that. Some people were eliminated, while others advanced. Finally, there was a huge decrease in the number of people who successfully entered the third round. Originally, there were thousands of participants, but now there were only 500 to 600 left. This was a decrease of almost half of the original number. Most importantly, many of them had low scores. It seemed like the Little Medicine Fairy's questions were really ruthless. The elimination was much more ruthless than the previous rounds. In the past, they felt that the difficulty of the previous rounds was too high. Now, it seemed like the previous rounds were too easy. Not bad. There were many participants in the second round who displayed good abilities. Although there were a few who violated the rules, overall, it allowed me to see the promise you mentioned in the first round. All of your abilities are not bad. All of you have worked hard. The second round didn't stump you. Little Medicine Fairy nodded her head in satisfaction. It was obvious that her mood was much better. Next, we will rest for 2 days. After that, we will proceed to the third round. After Little Medicine Fairy announced this, she signaled for them to rest. This rest could be done by going to other regions or resting on the same spot. While they were resting, the surrounding participants directly surged forward and surrounded Etienne. Chapter 1744. Brother, you don't look familiar. Which region are you from? Yeah, let's get to know each other. I've never seen you before. You're pretty good. You're really amazing. I've never seen you before. My name is Xia Yun. Brother, can I get to know you? One by one, some of them came to see Etienne, and some of them came to see Etienne. They all saw some potential in Etienne and came over to get to know him. In fact, it wasn't just Etienne. The other disciples with higher rankings all had their fellow disciples come over to congratulate them. Some of them were even generous with their praises. This was human nature. As long as one had strength, there would be a group of people coming over. Some of them might not necessarily want to curry favor with you, but they would definitely want to get to know you. Having a few strong friends was always a good thing. This was a 2-day break. The Little Medicine Fairy wasn't forbidden from moving around. She could return to her residence or go to another place to rest for a period of time. After all, some of the participants had consumed quite a lot of energy after consuming the poison pill. Although the Little Medicine Fairy had controlled the poison pill very well, there were still some places that were injured. Thus, she still gave them a bit more time to rest. As for whether they wanted to rest or celebrate passing the second round, it was up to them. The Little Medicine Fairy didn't care about this. After she made the announcement, she flew away to busy herself with her own matters. She would only come back after 2 days to continue the alchemy competition. I'm sorry, I've consumed quite a lot of energy. I need some quiet rest. Etienne ignored them and directly sat down to meditate, waiting for the next round of the competition. He had come here to steal some information, not to make friends. There was no point in doing so. His cold rejection made the expressions of the disciples who came over to congratulate or befriend turn ugly. It seemed like they had been snubbed after showing their warm faces. They had come over for nothing, only to be rejected. All of them snorted and turned to leave, no longer paying attention to Etienne. No wonder he's so obscure. He's a loner. Boring. It's better to stay away from this kind of person. Otherwise, he won't even bother replying to you. They all knew Etienne's character, so they were too lazy to bother with him. There were many people who were better than Etienne. It was better to bother with those who were better or slightly worse than him. After all, at least they would still pay attention to him. When it was quiet again, Little Medicine Fairy had returned to the Medicine God Temple. Siennaire, it seems like the difficulty of your test this time is quite high. A handsome middle-aged man smiled kindly as he looked at the Little Medicine Fairy, who was flying up from below. It's only interesting if it's more difficult. Only then can we filter out more outstanding disciples. In the past, I have been watching from the side and felt that this design was not reasonable at all. Now, it is finally my turn to design it. This is the best choice. Little Medicine Fairy smiled slightly, feeling very satisfied with what she had done. It's good that there are some changes. The content of the test has always been the same. It's time to change it. This middle-aged man was naturally the alchemy god. He looked like an extremely amiable middle-aged man, without the slightest bit of majesty. Everything about him seemed so amiable, but the energy fluctuations he emitted were the same as the little medicine fairies. They both had the body of an alchemy god. Beside him, there was a group of spirit medicines, all of which were at the level of tens of thousands of years. In the divine realm, these spirit medicines would be snatched by the major forces, but now they were staying on the side, doing their own activities and treating this place as their own home. It's definitely going to change, but Father, is it really right to always be like this? The little medicine fairy looked at her father doubtfully, hoping that her father could give her an answer. Serene, you're here again. The medicine god's originally peaceful expression suddenly sank, replaced by a serious face. It's not that Serene is repeating these words, but it's time for the sacred medicine hall to change. Each disciple is extremely arrogant and needs to go out and gain experience. Moreover, the evil spirit race is doing evil outside, and many forces have been annexed. If this continues, if the evil spirit race occupies the outside divine realm, we will also be finished. The little medicine fairy did not flinch, but with a firm and powerful tone, fiercely fought back. Enough! The medicine god slapped the chair, startling the 10,000 years old spirit medicines on the side. They jumped a few times to the side. I've already said this. The outside world has nothing to do with us. From the beginning, our sacred medicine hall has been an absolutely neutral existence. No matter what happens outside, it has nothing to do with us. Even if it really comes to this extent, we will be destroyed, so be it. Is this the so-called ancestral teaching? Because of this ancestral teaching, we did not participate in the first battle of the Divine Emperor, and the outside world has scolded us countless times. They said that we are cowards and allowed foreign enemies to invade. Now the second battle of the Divine Emperor is also about to begin, and the evil emperor is ready to make a move. Are we going to follow the so-called ancestral teaching and continue to be cowardly until we die? I think that the original ancestral teaching was just that we do not want to interfere with the order of this world, not that we do not want to resist any foreign enemies. The little medicine fairy glared at her father with red eyes, wanting to continue to fight something. Ha! A clear and melodious sound rang out. The little medicine fairy's face was twisted to the side, and a palm print appeared on it. The burning pain made her clench her teeth, but she did not cry out, nor did she cover her face. Instead, she turned her head to look at her father again. Ancestor, please do not blame Serene. Everything she said is nonsense, and her mentality is not right. The medicine god stood up and made a praying gesture, as if the ancestor could still hear her. Father, what are you doing? The ancestor has already left for God knows how long. How can he still hear you? The little medicine fairy did not give up, still roaring angrily, and her voice spread throughout the entire temple. Impudent! If the ancestor's words are really passed down, what do you think? The medicine god looked at the little medicine fairy with an exasperated expression and said, with your qualifications, you cannot hear the ancestor's voice for the time being, but we can. Now, you know why we did not choose to move out. The ancestor has always been here. As long as we pass on his voice, he will respond. Even if the evil spirit race really occupies everything, as long as they dare to touch our sacred medicine hall, only death awaits them. Can they be stronger than our ancestor? Impossible. Chapter 1745. The little medicine fairy was stunned. She never thought that she would really be able to contact her ancestor. She had never heard of such news and thought that it had been completely severed. Now that she realized that she could still contact the legendary ancestor, it was completely different. Father, are you saying that we can hear the ancestor's instructions through prayer? The little medicine fairy still couldn't believe it. Everything was too unbelievable. Their ancestor had disappeared for so long, yet he could still contact him? Yes, this is something that only people of our level can know. Serene, since you're so stubborn, I can only say it out loud. The fewer people who know about this, the better. The medicine god shook his head and said, through prayer, we can receive the information passed down by our ancestor. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. For example, when it comes to the battle of the god emperor, the ancestor passed down a message saying that we should maintain absolute neutrality and absolutely not make a move. At first, we didn't believe it, but there was indeed a divine decree that was passed down from the ancestor statue, allowing us to clearly understand. The little medicine fairy was stunned and said with great difficulty, "That's why we didn't make a move at the beginning of the battle of the god emperor." Yes, that's why we didn't make a move and remain neutral. We don't know why we have to remain neutral, but we have to obey the ancestors' instructions. The medicine god shook his head. They didn't make a move because of the ancestors' divine decree. The outside world didn't know about it, but even if they knew, wasn't this ancestor being too selfish? No one could figure out why they had always been neutral. So that's how it is. Even though the little medicine fairy knew the truth, she still felt very disappointed. She really couldn't understand why they had to do this. The evil spirit race was so evil. Even if they had the ability to protect themselves, she would still feel incomparably angry as she watched the forces outside be destroyed. Perhaps she was not related to the outside world, but the evil spirit race made her feel disgusted. Especially after knowing the actions of the evil spirit race, she felt even more disgusted and wished that she could exterminate the evil spirit race. It's fine as long as you know, so don't speak nonsense. Let the outside world say whatever they want. Father is tired. Withdraw and focus on the alchemy competition. This is related to the selection of the new disciples of the medicine god hall. The ancestor is probably watching. The medicine god waved his hand, indicating for the little medicine fairy to leave. When the little medicine fairy left, she was in a daze and had yet to recover from the shock. No wonder the medicine god was so agitated and gave her a ruthless slap. He was truly afraid of blaspheming his ancestors. If the ancestor was still alive, he would still descend. If the little medicine immortal blasphemed the ancestor, she would be annihilated with a snap of her finger. That was an existence of a god emperor. Can the ancestor statue that we worship every year really show its spirit? Little medicine fairy muttered. The red mark on her face had already disappeared, but her heart was filled with reverence. But even though she was in awe, she still couldn't understand why they chose to be neutral. He could have been neutral in the past, so why was he neutral now? Her mind was a mess, and by the time she came back to her senses, she was already standing on the alchemy stage, completely unaware of what had happened. That's strange. Why is there something wrong with her today? When Tianyun saw the little medicine fairy, he felt that something was wrong with her. Her mood was much worse than before. He wasn't the only one who noticed it. The others also noticed it, but they didn't know how to go up and say it. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, Princess Little Medicine Fairy. Someone shouted from the side, but the Little Medicine Fairy didn't respond. After shouting a few more times, she finally responded. When the Little Medicine Fairy came back to her senses, she smiled awkwardly and said, "Sorry, I was just thinking about something. Now that time is almost up. Let's prepare to start the competition." She quickly adjusted her mood, but Tianyun could still see that the Little Medicine Fairy's brows were still filled with melancholy. He didn't know what she was thinking about. Even if the others could see it, they wouldn't dare to ask. This was the Little Medicine Fairy's private matter, so how could they dare to casually ask? Especially those high and mighty people. With such a great disparity in status, it wasn't easy to ask. If they really wanted to ask, only those at the elder level would be shameless enough to ask. The rest could only stand to the side. After all, even if they asked, would the Little Medicine Fairy tell them? Soon, everyone was ready. They were a little nervous, hoping that this time it wouldn't be too much of a trap. It looks like you're all ready. The third stage is about to begin. The Little Medicine Fairy smiled faintly and immediately adjusted her mood. She looked much better than before. Shortly after, she waved her hand and another large bell fell down, smashing heavily on their chests. They clutched their chests, feeling so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Looking at this large bell, they felt their scalps go numb. They didn't think that this large bell would appear again and again. How could they not feel their scalps go numb and their heads ache? This large bell again? They were extremely depressed, and some couldn't help but say it out loud. It seemed like they had a deep grudge against this large bell. After all, it had always been this large bell that the questions were obtained from inside. Would they be able to obtain the questions from inside this time? There's no need to be nervous. This large bell is just like what you think. The questions will still come from inside. The little medicine fairy's words made them feel despair. They originally thought that the questions would not come from inside this bell, but it seemed like they were too naive. The questions would still come from inside this large bell. Even though the topic might not be a bad one, the shadow of the bell still lingered in his mind. Don't worry, the questions will definitely be very difficult. If the questions weren't difficult, would it still be called an alchemy competition? The little medicine fairy gave them another ruthless blow. They originally thought that she would say that it wasn't difficult, but who would have thought that she would actually say that it was difficult? These words were crude, but the logic was not. If the alchemy competition was easy, would it still be called an alchemy competition? They might as well just rank the participants according to their usual standards. There was no need to do anything else. All right, don't be too depressed. I'm sure you'll like the questions this time. The little medicine fairy clapped her hands and smiled. Now, you can pick your questions. It's the same as the second stage. Pick your own. Come forward according to your number. One by one, the participants could only go forward to pick their questions. What they took out was still a bottle of pills. There was nothing new. Another pill. They thought that it would be a jade token or something that would display the questions. They didn't expect that it would still be pills. Could it be that it would be the same as before, and they would have to consume the pills inside? But the detoxification process had already ended. What other types of pills would there be? The other types were either beneficial or restorative. There didn't seem to be any questions for this one, right? Chapter 1746. The content of the third test is in the bottle in your hands. You can open it now and see what exactly is inside. The little medicine fairy was very generous this time. She gestured for them to open the bottle and see what was inside. One by one, they immediately opened the bottle. When they saw what was inside, they all let out cries of surprise. However, they did not say what it was. The bottle in Yi Tianyun's hand did indeed contain an elixir. However, it was only half elixir. The remaining half was nowhere to be found. This meant that it was not a complete elixir. In terms of refining level, it was also not a complete elixir. It could be considered a semi-finished product. There were a total of 3 similar half-finished elixirs. They were all similar semi-finished elixirs. A semi-finished elixir was placed in a bottle. This was a little thought-provoking. The elixirs in your hands are all semi-finished. I believe you can all see this. The third test is very simple. You have to rack your brains to find the best effect for this semi-finished elixir. In other words, you have to refine it again. Using this semi-finished elixir as a foundation, you have to refine the best effect. This will test your usual experience and alchemy skills. The higher the grade of the elixir you refine, the higher the score. At the same time, the more complex it is, the more points you will get. After the little medicine fairy explained, everyone understood what was going on. This was basically a test of whose idea was better. Under the perfect combination, one could refine a better grade elixir. This was just like a weapon. Given a fixed material, then paired it with dragon blood, phoenix blood, spirit medicine, crystal stones, and so on, to maximize the effect of the weapon. This semi-finished elixir was the same. It depended on how the ingredients were matched. However, it definitely could not be randomly matched. Originally, if the elixir was randomly matched, not only would the effect be very poor, the slightest mistake could lead to failure. Eating it could even lead to death. For this reason, the foundation was very important. Without a good foundation, one would not be able to refine a better grade elixir. In particular, a large amount of matching was very important. If one did not have any brains, they would not be able to think of what to match in order to maximize the effect of this semi-finished elixir. The little medicine fairy's test was indeed able to accurately grasp the corresponding points and choose the more outstanding disciples. So that's how it is. This is really interesting. Yi Tianyun touched his chin and looked at the semi-finished product in his hand. The content is quite interesting, but for him, The difficulty is really not that high. He felt that Little Medicine Fairy's idea was quite interesting. Coming to the god domain of the three realms to nurture alchemists was a pretty good choice. If this idea were to spread, it would really scare people to death. The one who was frightened was the Region Lord of the Alliance. Was it even possible to kidnap his precious daughter? There are 3 semi-finished pills in the bottle, which means that you have 3 chances. If you fail, you will be eliminated. The better the effect, the higher the score. The full score is still 30 points, and the time limit is still 1 week. Begin. With a flick of Little Medicine Fairy's finger, the time crystal flew up again and rapidly melted in the air. This time, the contestants did not act immediately. Instead, they were thinking hard. This was not a simple matter, especially since there was a limit to the number of times he could do it. If he failed, he would be eliminated. The full score in the previous 2 rounds was useless. If he was eliminated in this round, he would not have any more chances. This was such a cruel situation. They absolutely could not miss a single round. They had to pass every round. It was a little strict, but if they wanted outstanding disciples, they had to do this. After all, they did not allow any flaws to appear. This was all basic knowledge and related to their own foundation. If they did not meet this requirement, they did not have the qualifications to climb up. While everyone was thinking hard, Etienne turned around and walked towards the spiritual herbs, instantly becoming everyone's focus. Who would have thought that the first person to complete the test would go to pick spiritual herbs again? Wasn't his speed a little too fast? Is he bluffing to attract Princess Little Medicine Fairy's attention? 3 chances. If he messes around and loses them all, that would be a joke. I don't believe that he can succeed in one go and choose the best. Princess Little Medicine Fairy clearly said that she does not want to see any self-expression. She just wants to see the best result. This time, there will be a good show to watch. This kid has long disliked him. He doesn't even bother talking to him. I hope he can make a fool of himself. Many of the contestants were criticizing him in their hearts. They were very unhappy with Etienne's actions. Etienne's actions had indeed attracted Little Medicine Fairy's attention. She kept staring at him as he went to pick the spiritual herbs. His pill is the jade magnolia and the deep nightgrass. If he wants to achieve a perfect combination, he needs to pick 4 types of spirit herbs to achieve the best effect. I've started picking. The first one is right, the second one is right. He's really quick to think. He's already perfectly matched 2 types. The third one is also right. This disciple is really good at concealing his abilities. It seems that the 4th one should not be a problem. The 4th one is the ding shoe grass. It's not suitable. It's completely messed up. If he matches it like this, the effect will only be worse. Little Medicine Fairy shook her head, unable to conceal the disappointment in her eyes. She did not expect that after getting 3 correct, the 4th one would be wrong. This made her somewhat disappointed. Forget it, there are a total of 3 chances. In a while, he will know that the effect is not optimal. I hope he can find the problem. If he hands it in, the score will definitely not be high. Little Medicine Fairy had given them 3 chances. As long as they could refine the best elixir in any one of them, they would be able to obtain a high score. She would not say that there would be extra points for the first success. She would only look at the best result. After Etienne picked the spiritual herbs, he began to refine the elixir. Because the overall grade was not high, he only spent half a day to successfully refine it. This was naturally the effect that Etienne had deliberately concealed. If he really used all his power, he would be able to complete it in an instant. At that time, it would give everyone a big fright. It's done. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, please judge. Etienne handed over the refined elixir. The surrounding audience and participants all looked over, wanting to see how many points Etienne's elixir could obtain. Little Medicine Fairy shook her head, looked at him, and said, "Are you sure you want to compete with this elixir? Although there are 3 chances, once you hand it in, the score will be determined. Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, I'm sure. After all, this is the best combination available," Etienne said with absolute certainty. Chapter 1747. Since you have chosen a hand over this one, then hand it over. The little medicine fairy did not take it over, but said in a clear voice, this pill was perfectly matched in the beginning. 3 of the most perfect spirit herbs were chosen, but the last one was chosen wrongly. This caused the effect to not be fully displayed, and the effect might even be weakened. Therefore, after consideration, I can only give you 10 points for this pill. This is the score I will give you. I hope that in the next match, you will be more attentive, think more about the effect, or try more. The little medicine fairy's words also revealed that there was still the next match. But everyone's attention was still on Tianyun's score, 10 points. 30 points out of 10 points, but he could only get 10 points. Because he chose the last one wrongly, it caused the overall effect to decrease, and his score fell by a large amount. If he did not make a particularly wrong choice, he would have gotten at least 20 points. Now he only had 10 points, a very miserable score. Although he passed compared to his previous performance, it was really too horrible to look at. Haha, this kid really failed. He went to find spirit herbs without thinking. Now he finally failed? This is the consequence of being arrogant. He still wanted to show off, but how can he do so now? He really made a fool of himself. He really is an idiot. Not only is he unreasonable, he doesn't know how to grasp opportunities and is honest all the way to the end. What a joke. All of them mocked him, but they kept it in their hearts, not daring to casually mock him. At that time, the little medicine fairy would definitely punish them. They did not say anything, but their eyes were full of mockery, all of them poking Tianyun's back like needles. 10 points? Tianyun squinted at the little medicine fairy and repeated this score. Yes, 10 points. You matched the first 3 perfectly, but only the last one was wrong, so I hope you can work harder. The little medicine fairy patiently explained. She did not want Tianyun to walk down the wrong path. You're saying that the ding shu grass is wrong? Tianyun said with a faint smile. That's right, the ding shu grass is a wrong combination. Because of the ding shu grass's effect, it caused the overall effect to decrease. If you were to pair it with something else, you would be able to obtain a high score, but now you can only obtain a very low score. Little medicine fairy explained. Oh, I don't think the ding shu grass is wrong. On the contrary, I think the ding shu grass is the most perfect combination. Tianyun retorted, not agreeing with the little medicine fairy's judgment. Impossible. The effects of ding shu grass are negative, especially when combined with those 3 types of spirit medicines. It will greatly reduce the effects and even affect the effects. Little medicine fairy was extremely sure that ding shu grass had the biggest problem. Given the little medicine fairy's level, she was extremely knowledgeable in this aspect. It was impossible for her to remember or see wrongly. The effect was fixed, and it was impossible for it to change. Exactly. How could Princess Little Medicine Fairy's judgment be wrong? Yours is the one that's wrong. The ding shu grass is not perfect. That's right. You're still so stubborn. Princess Little Medicine Fairy's rank is much higher than yours. What kind of level is that? How can you be so sure? If I say you're wrong, then it's your fault. Don't you think you've embarrassed yourself enough? One by one, they began to ridicule Tianyun. They could forget about Tianyun's previous situation, but now he dared to be so arrogant and even questioned the little medicine fairy's judgment. This made them very unhappy. They felt that he was really too ignorant. The little medicine fairy's alchemy level was at least at the level of a 6th or 7th grade divine alchemy master. This level was countless times higher than them. One had to know that the strongest level of divine alchemy here was only at the 8th grade, and the little medicine fairy was basically at the level below the divine alchemy master. She dared not say that she was ranked 2nd in the divine medicine temple, but there was no problem for her to kill her way into the top 5. How could she be wrong to have such a level at such a young age? Tianyun's expression was indifferent. He ignored the ridicule around him. This kind of challenge of authority he had done many times before. Every time, the situation was similar, and he would be belittled in all kinds of ways. Authority was authority, and it could not be challenged, especially when the other party's status was not low and was even higher than them. Under such circumstances, even if it was wrong, it would be considered right. Is that so? Princess Little Medicine Fairy, the last perfect elixir you mentioned, is it the green leaf grass? Tianyun said with a smile. Yes, it seems that you still know that the green leaf grass is the perfect combination. The Little Medicine Fairy's eyes narrowed. She thought that Tianyun didn't know, but she didn't expect him to know. Because I know that the green leaf grass is the perfect combination. Try the effect of this elixir first. Tianyun stretched out his hand, and the elixir in his hand fell into the Little Medicine Fairy's hand. The Little Medicine Fairy picked it up and gently sniffed it. Her eyes showed some surprise and immediately swallowed it without hesitation. After a moment, the Little Medicine Fairy's eyes were filled with a complicated look. She looked at Tianyun with a little more surprise. This effect is indeed the best, the Little Medicine Fairy admitted, but she didn't reject the fact that the effect was not good. This made Tianyun's eyes brighten. It seemed that the Little Medicine Fairy wasn't being stubborn. If she really was stubborn, everyone would really believe her words and not Tianyun's. After all, the Little Medicine Fairy was the authority, and he wasn't. Under such circumstances, it could be completely denied that his elixir was the worst. But she didn't do so, and chose to admit it. This meant that she would be very embarrassed. Just a moment ago, she was very certain that she was right, but now she was slapping her own face. But this spirit made Tianyun feel some admiration. How many people in a high position could do this? Even if they were wrong, they wouldn't choose to admit it. The Little Medicine Fairy's admission made the participants who were previously criticizing Tianyun speechless. They didn't think that the Little Medicine Fairy would admit it, and even more so, they didn't think that the Little Medicine Fairy would make a mistake. This was simply unimaginable. One had to know that the Little Medicine Fairy's grade was so high. How could she be wrong? This was like a Tier 7 God Pill Master failing to refine a Tier 1 elixir. It was impossible to fail. Even with one's eyes closed, it was impossible to fail. But this was the truth. The Little Medicine Fairy's judgment was wrong. On the contrary, Tianyun won. Chapter 1748. The Little Medicine Fairy's admission greatly improved Tianyun's impression of the Medicine God Temple. He didn't expect there to be such a clear-headed person. Although he saw that the Little Medicine Fairy's character was good before, he really didn't know what her real situation was until the end. Now it seemed that the Little Medicine Fairy's character was really good. She really didn't put on airs and made mistakes when she should. The Little Medicine Fairy's admission made the laughter of Tianyun stop abruptly. They didn't expect the Little Medicine Fairy to really admit it. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, it seems that you have already eaten it. What is going on? Tianyun said with a smile. Yes, I have already eaten it. It is indeed the most perfect combination. I just didn't expect that the ding shu grass you added was not a fully mature ding shu grass, but an immature ding shu grass. An immature ding shu grass has a different effect. A mature ding shu grass will have an additional catalytic effect, which will instead affect the current state. An immature ding shu grass, on the contrary, does not have this effect and can increase the effect. This is something I didn't expect. I didn't expect an immature ding shu grass to have such an effect. The Little Medicine Fairy shook her head. She really didn't expect that there would be such a different effect. An immature spiritual medicine would generally not choose to use. After all, if the effect was not at its best, it would certainly not be used. It was like an immature fruit. If eaten, it would be bitter and unpleasant, and even poisonous. Therefore, people often eat mature ones, not immature ones. But this spiritual medicine was different, and the effect was different, which she didn't expect. It's normal. Princess Little Medicine Fairy usually uses mature and perfect spiritual medicine to refine pills. It's impossible to use immature spiritual medicine. Therefore, it's normal that you don't know. If you want to know about this, you just have to be a medicine boy for a while, and you will know the difference. Of course, the elixir provided by Princess Little Medicine Fairy requires this spiritual medicine. The others really don't match. It's not that I did it deliberately, but it's very coincidental. Princess Little Medicine Fairy admitted it so readily, which makes me look at you in a different light. If it were anyone else, I'm afraid they would be far from being able to do this." Tianyun couldn't help but praise. He didn't look down on the little immortal medicine for not knowing about this. After all, there were still many things that even a powerhouse did not know. Besides, there were some things that there was no need to know. For example, it didn't matter if he didn't know about this. After all, it wasn't a crucial point. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. The others don't want to admit it because they don't want to put down their pride, but I don't have such concerns. The little medicine fairy looked at them with a solemn expression. At the same time, I hope that everyone will humbly ask for guidance. Don't be arrogant and complacent. This is meaningless to your own progress. On the other hand, the little medicine fairy was able to use herself as an example to teach her disciples. She had really put in a lot of effort. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they began to applaud. They had a deeper understanding of the little medicine fairy's words. At the same time, he looked at Tianyun in a new light. However, there was still a portion of people who were unhappy with Tianyun. They felt that he was stealing their limelight. Then, the little medicine fairy looked at Tianyun and said, "I apologize for my previous judgment. Your combination was perfect. I'll reevaluate and give you a score of 30 points. 30 points. Tianyun obtained full marks once again. This caused an uproar among the crowd. They didn't expect that Tianyun would obtain full marks again. This meant that he had obtained full marks for all 3 rounds. If this continued, wouldn't he be able to obtain first place? A disciple from the same sect who appeared out of nowhere had obtained first place just like that? They didn't dare to believe this. Normally, he didn't have any reputation, nor did he have any achievements. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere. "Thank you, Princess Little Medicine Fairy, for your fairness." Tianyun smiled and waited to the side for the next round. After this small interlude, many people's gazes once again gathered on Tianyun. They didn't expect that a little medicine boy would know so much. Most importantly, he dared to talk back to the little medicine fairy. If it wasn't for the little medicine fairy's good attitude, he would have definitely been eliminated. In a normal alchemy competition, the judges were the ones in charge. Whatever the judges said was the law, and no one could refute them. If one refuted, it would be seen as disrupting the competition, and they would be directly eliminated. Soon, the results of the 3rd round were out. Some people successfully advanced, while others were eliminated. Once again, a large group of people were filtered out. Those who were not filtered out actually had very high scores. This was no different from being filtered out. If the score was too low, there was no reward to speak of. The only reward was to stay here for a period of time and absorb more spiritual energy. In the 3rd round, all of you performed well, especially the individual participants. Their performances were even more dazzling. The little medicine fairy smiled and said, "I hope that in the next round, all of you will obtain even better results. Next, all of you should rest well for 2 days. 2 days later, the next round of competition will begin." After the announcement, the little medicine fairy left, as before. Tianyun directly sat down to meditate, completely ignoring the cultivators around him. It was meaningless for the other disciples to come over. It was a complete waste of effort. Tianyun's performance also spread to the medicine temple at the same time. Many elders nodded with satisfaction when they saw the situation here. "Princess Little Medicine Fairy, I didn't expect you to be defeated." When an elder saw the little medicine fairy coming up, he couldn't help but laugh. He didn't mean to ridicule her, but simply said a few words. Indeed, it's not a shame to be defeated by a junior. The little medicine fairy smiled faintly and said, "It proves that there are still people who can be molded. The future pillars of the medicine temple will rely on these new disciples. Without the input of new blood, the medicine temple will not be able to stand firm." That's right. Princess Little Medicine Fairy is so young, but she has such awareness. She is worthy of being the next temple master. We are also relieved. The numerous elders nodded in satisfaction. They did not have any objections to the little medicine fairy being the next successor. However, it would take a long time. The medicine god was now strong. If he wanted to become the next temple master, it was estimated that he would have to become a god emperor or live in seclusion. Elders, no one knows what will happen in the future. Maybe the next temple master will not be me. For me, to be able to manage the medicine temple better, that is the real temple master. The little medicine fairy's beautiful eyes were full of brilliance. There were very few people who could have this kind of idea. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.